2026. I'm going to take a moment and introduce myself, members of the board. I'd like to take a moment and sort of tell everyone in the room, to the extent to which you may not have been to the Zoning Board of Appeals before, or if you have, I'll thank you in advance for your indulgence, but I always like to just sort of walk everyone through what to expect. Essentially tell you what we're going to tell you, then we tell you, then we'll tell you what we told you. That's essentially the flow. It's nice to know if you sit in the audience, and for anyone that's watching to the extent to which we still broadcast using this device called the OWL system. We want to make sure everyone knows what to expect so that you know which application you might be here for or in connection with, and can plan your time. So taking a moment, I'm going to call the roll, establish that we have a legal quorum to be able to conduct business this evening. That's a legal requirement. I also will disclose for the record the 5 voting members for this evening. It's required that 5 members of our 7-panel Zoning Board of Appeals be designated as the 5 voting members. That means that even the other 2 members who are not voting on any given application, they still participate in every way. They will listen to, participate in all of the segments of zoning board, from questions to deliberations. They just simply do not cast a vote. Without further ado, I'm going to open our meetings and our public hearings, call our roll. We'll get started. I assume we are recording. Great. Beginning to my immediate right, we have Caitlin Sullivan, our city planner, and Ms. Gretchen Joy, our keeper of the minutes. Again, my name is Rob Champetti. I have the privilege of serving as chair. To my immediate left is Mr. Ken Swan, our vice chair. Mr. Stephen Delisle, zoning member. Mr. Gregory Bennick, zoning member. Jared Eigerman, associate member. Larry Ginta, associate member. And our newest member of the ZBA, John Harding, associate member. And for the record, I think, Jared, you're now a member, and our 2. So Mr. Eigerman was our previous associate member and now full member. And Mr. Ginta and Mr. Harding are our associate members. So calling the roll of the Newburyport Zoning Board of Appeals, Mr. Swanton. Here. Mr. Delisle. Here. Mr. Bennett. Here. Mr. Eigerman. Here. Mr. Ginta. Present. Mr. Harding. Here. And Rob Champetti, I'm present. That's 7 present. Our 5 voting members for all of the applications this evening, with the exception of 9 Bromfield Street, which I'll explain in a moment, are myself, Mr. Swanton, Mr. Delisle, Mr. Bennick, and Mr. Eigerman. Mr. Ginta and Mr. Harding will be participating in every way, just not voting unless there is a recusal or a conflict that arises mid-course. With respect to 9 Bromfield Street, this is a return of an application that had its sort of genesis a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a conflict that I disclosed then, previous attorney-client connection, so I remain recused. So with respect to that first application, Mr. Swanton, our vice chair, will be chairing that application, and for purposes of that, the 5 voting members will be Mr. Swanton, Mr. Delisle, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Eigerman, and whomever. Is it Mr. Ginta? Yes. Will be the 5th voting member unless because he participated. Yeah, so Mr. Ginta had participated when this was back here 2 weeks ago. Now that we've established the legal quorum and open. Now that we've established our quorum, our roll call. I want to just take a quick moment and walk everyone through what to expect, and then we'll get right into the business of this evening. We are broadcasting live as well, and Ms. Joy is also keeping minutes so that we can publish minutes at the city's website. So the way the Zoning Board of Appeals works, for anyone not already familiar, we begin every application with essentially myself, or in the case of 9 Bromfield, Mr. Swanton will read the public notice. This is essentially just the announcement of and a rephrasing of the application by address, by applicant, and then also a sort of natural language description of what the applicant seeks. The Zoning Board of Appeals is as an administrative appellate body. We operate with a little more, I should say, rigor and some formality than might be normal in other boards and commissions, and that's mostly driven by statute. So as you hear us sort of conduct business, you'll notice that we will run things as under a modified version of Robert's Rules of Order. So with that, the first process is to announce the application by the same manner in which it's been disclosed and noticed to abutters and published on the city's website, as well as published in any other, any other periodical. We will invite the applicant or the representative, architect, attorney, engineer, any of the above, all of the above, to kindly take the podium. We only ask that not to broadcast for the room necessarily, but so that it can be recorded as well as so that it can be heard by those online. So we'll invite the applicant to present the application once the application is presented. And by the way, any slides that are being referred to are also published on the city's website. We also see everything that you see up here. Anything that's being referred to, that's being referenced or broadcast on the screen behind me is also available and being seen in real time online. And anyone in the audience or anyone among our fellow residents of Newburyport can also access all of these materials at the City of Newburyport's website. So after the application is fully presented, we'll then close that initial portion of the public hearing and we go to public comment. During public comment, there's a slide that Ms. Sullivan will put up, and it essentially just gives a quick lay of the land. We invite everyone or anyone to simply raise your hand, be recognized, and stand and come to the podium if you could, and just give us your name and address so that Ms. Joy can record it, and then just give us your thoughts. You needn't necessarily fall into a column of pro or con, though you are invited to do so if you feel inclined to want to describe your comments as for or against, but there's no requirement that you necessarily be either for or against. You may simply just rise, give us your name and address, and share your thoughts. We do ask everyone to kindly govern themselves with the courtesy of about a 2-minute time limit. If you are running very, very long, I mean, we always want to hear everything everyone has to say, but in the interest of everyone in the room or online having an opportunity to speak and share their thoughts, I will do my best to, as courteously as possible, just sort of cue the commenter to begin to, wrap things up. And that's a discretion that the chair has. I'm never going to shut the mic off or anything, but we'll just ask everyone to just kindly govern yourselves accordingly with respect to time limit. And otherwise, just give us your thoughts. Once we've gone through the room with a show of hands for public comment on each application, we'll then go online. To the extent there is anyone online, we'll recognize them and hear from them as well. And then once we've exhausted any public comments in the room or online, we will close that second portion of the public hearing and go to the third portion called questions from the board. This is when members of the ZBA, in no particular order, will pose questions to the applicant or the applicant's representatives, usually driven by the materials that we've heard. I'll also just make this reference. To the extent to which you may wish to pose a public comment in the form of a question, we certainly invite you and welcome you to do that. Just please understand that the board members mean no discourtesy if you find that we are not able to directly address your question. If you frame your public comment in the form of a question, know that we mean no disrespect when we aren't able to answer that question. But rest assured, you will almost certainly hear some version of your public comment in the form of a question by one of the members of the ZBA, because we're all taking notes and listening intently, and often have many of the same questions that anyone else might have. So rest assured that that is recognized and heard, even if it isn't directly responded to. So after we go through questions from the board, we will then close that third portion of the public hearing and go to the fourth and final segment, which is deliberations. Deliberations are required to be sort of out loud and in full view. So of course, you just essentially, members of the community and the public who are listening or here, witness the deliberations of the board out loud as it's evolving in real time. The board will toil with the legal criteria, whether the applicant has met that standard, whether there are further questions or comments. You hear all of that evolve and unfold as it happens right here at the tables. Once we've gone through the deliberations, I'll close that final portion, at which point I will invite a motion by one of the members of the ZBA. The motion that I invite is always an invitation for a motion to approve. That doesn't necessarily mean that a member of the ZBA who makes that first motion to approve plans to approve the application or even support the application. Rather, it's just a procedural formality by which the motion is placed on the table for vote. So it's always in the affirmative, a motion to approve. It doesn't mean that member of the ZBA is planning to support that application, just simply the format. Once the motion is made and seconded, we will then call the roll and everyone will vote yes or no, yay or nay. In order for the application to be successful, 4 of the 5 voting members sitting up here must vote in the affirmative. 4 yeses means that the motion carries and the application is approved. So essentially, that is the involuntary lesson on what to expect. And I apologize, but also appreciate the indulgence of everyone. Just it's good to sort of say that out loud so everyone knows what to expect. So with that, we will open up our public hearings. And I'll begin with the application of 9 Bromfield Street. This is an application continued from 4/14/2026, special permit for nonconformities. And I will remove myself from the room and turn over the chair to Mr. Swanton.
Thank you. I'll just read what this is about. This is the applicant at 9 Bromfield Street is asking for a special permit to remove an existing roof line and create a 3rd floor above the existing 2nd floor, extending upward the non-conforming front and side yard setback. So with that, the first thing is for the applicant, and I believe Attorney Duchesne will be doing the presentation. And we're actually getting a copy
of the presentation. I do have a few extra copies if someone wants. Well, Mr. Chair and members of the board, good evening. For the record, Douglas Duchesne. Douglas Duchesne from Finner and Nicholson, representing the homeowner, Ryan Johnson. And I know some of you may have met our architect, Lydia, in previous hearings. She is not with us this evening. And I do have to apologize on behalf of my client, Mr. Johnson. I can assure you he would rather be anywhere, would rather be nowhere but here tonight, but he is currently on his way to Ukraine into a war zone. I understand he supports our military efforts over there. So he's in Ukraine, cannot be here. So he asked me to apologize on his behalf. Also, before I get started, I would like to say that, as you know, this is my first opportunity to actually present this proposal to the board. It was previously done by our architect and my client, and so it has been a little bit of time to get up to speed, and also because of my clients being outside the country quite often over the last few months, we've had difficulty in getting things together, but we are here tonight. I am here tonight to move forward with this application. So I know that you've heard some of this, so I'm going to be very quick, and I'm not going to go back and start over. But I do want to give you a few facts with respect to the project and the context in which this project was originally developed. So if I could go to the next slide, please. You'll recall the existing conditions. The existing home is in the R2 and within the DCOD. The lot is pre-existing non-conforming as to both area and frontage. The existing home itself is pre-existing non-conforming as to the front setbacks, both side setbacks, and lot coverage. Next slide, please. Here are some pictures that have been submitted previously, just to give you some context of the home. Each of these pictures is a different angle of 9 Bromfield. It is the grayish structure in the top left picture next to the yellow house. So this just gives you some context of how this house is technically sandwiched in between 2 other homes. It's quite narrow, and the lot itself is quite narrow. So we could move on, table please. Just to show you from the assessor's perspective, there's the lot is shown. As you can see, it is a very narrow lot. And if you take a minute to look around, you might notice that, in fact, 9 Bromfield, at least by my calculations, is either the smallest or one of the smallest homes in this entire neighborhood, as shown in this picture. If we could go to the next picture, you'll see another picture, and again, you'll see that this home is quite small, and it is wedged in quite tightly between 7 and 11 Bromfield. So one thing I'd like you to do with respect to this picture is just note the views, if you will, from the house, which is in the blue circle. And we're talking about a modification to the roof. So as you can see, the homes on either side are gonna have a pretty good view of this roof. There's no question about it. But I do want to suggest that very few other homes, unless you're standing straight out from Bromfield, you're not gonna see these additions, this addition, very readily, and certainly neighbors in the back and in the sides are, not gonna be able to see it, and quite frankly, are not gonna be impacted by it. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Next page, please. So to give you a quick background check, and this is the reason I gave you copies, I know it's hard to read that from so far away. I want to give you a little context here. And I think that my client and his architect certainly failed in providing this context to the board. This proposal is all about safety and sustainability of one of the smaller homes in this neighborhood. It is not an example of this mansionization we seem to talk about so much. And I know a number of the council, members of the council and other people in the city would like to see the bylaws changed with respect to how these properties can be modified. And it seems to me that the real goal here with respect to these new bylaws and new ordinances and people who are fighting these projects is to, they want to maintain the smaller homes. They want to maintain the historic character of the smaller homes, and they don't want them to be turned into McMansions. Well, this is not that case at all. Mr. Johnson's home at 9 Bromfield is his primary and only residence, and it is taxed as a 3-bedroom home, including the bedroom on the 3rd floor, which does not meet height requirements for occupancy. The 3rd floor has limited accessibility and usefulness, despite being taxed as at the full living area rate. Our architects, in performing the existing condition measurements, determined that the staircases from the basement to the 3rd floor are all non-conforming to a point of being a hazard and dangerous. As such, and I do have a letter from the architect that justifies all of this information I'm providing in here, that this is in fact her numbers. As such, the stairs are not only difficult to navigate, but are extremely dangerous. So much so that Mr. Johnson is unable to host his elderly mother or his nieces and nephews overnight at his home because of the dangerousness of these stairways. And quite frankly, at least Mr. Johnson and one of his nieces have fallen down these stairs and have been injured. So the point here was to make these stairs safe and to make the 3rd floor livable. It's being taxed as livable space, but it does not meet the requirements. So the stairs to the basement have all different heights, and the width of the stairs are only 2 feet and 5 inches and 3/4 wide. They do not meet current building code, which requires a 7.75 max for the height of stairs and a 36-inch wide stair base. Also, the tread width on those stairs is variable and in many cases non-conforming. So the stairs down to the basement are just not even close. As currently constructed, the existing stairways from the 1st to the 3rd floor are also non-conforming as to building code. The treads are aren't wide enough, are not wide enough. They're supposed to be 10.5 inches minimum. They're only 8.25. You wonder why people are falling. Also, the height of the rises are all different. And they range between like 8 and 8.5 inches, which is taller than the 7.75 max. Not only are these things too narrow, they're too short, they're too steep. They do not meet anything with respect to building code. And lastly, the head height of these stairways into the various floors does not conform to the required building code, which is a 6 foot 8 inch minimum requirement. The height of the 3rd floor is only 5 feet 7. And 1st floor is only at 6'6". So even the head height into these rooms does not meet code. Because we are proposing to reconstruct, to do renovations, we are required to bring the stairway into code compliance. The proposed renovations will reconstruct the entire stairway, providing code compliant stairs with sufficient head height to these rooms. So that was the original purpose. It wasn't to expand the size of this house, this McMansionization we're fighting. Rather, this is to make this house safe and sustainable. Next slide, please. The existing home has 1,278 square feet of living space as determined by our assessor. Determined by the architect, there is 133 square feet of living space at the 5-foot height on the third floor. However, the assessor recognizes only 102 square feet up there as living space. As proposed, the third floor living space, in order to meeting code requirements, would be 326 square feet. Therefore, the proposed project will increase the living area by 224 square feet. But we're going to lose 70 square feet of living space in expanding the stairways on the other floors. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, this proposal is to add a net gain of living space of 154. But the home will be safe, will meet building code, and it will make the home usable. This proposal does not add a third floor to this home, which I think has been suggested. It's 2.5 stories now, and we're expanding the roof. So I don't think that's the addition of a third floor, especially where we're already taxed as having third floor bedroom. The original proposal to allow for the stairway reconstruction was to, you'll recall, was to raise the entire roof. However, that was not well received by the Historic Commission or this board. So the proposal was later designed to incorporate dormer characteristics to the vertical addition. And I know I read a lot about whether the dormer regulations applied, whether that's what we're applying for, and I think it was determined that they don't. Certainly the board is allowed to consider whether we're using the dormer regulations to address the massing and scaling. So my client did later redesign to incorporate that dormer characteristic. Based on those revised plans, the Newbury Historic Commission actually voted unanimously to not only lift the demo delay, but to also approve the design. So they've expressly approved the design, they lifted the demo delay, and then we came back to this board with that new design. However, as you are all aware, the new design brought varied comments, including concerns as to the impact to the neighborhood, which at the end of the day, that is the criteria by which the board is reviewing this proposal. So the zoning impacts of the proposal, the existing roof is to be modified to allow for the reconstruction of the stairwell to meet building and safety codes and to increase the volume of the third floor by providing legal head height. We're not adding floor space, we're just adding legal head height to that room so that it's more usable. Proposed renovations will result in the following impacts. As I said earlier, addition of 100 square feet of living space. We're currently at 1,278 square feet. We're going to go up to 1,432, which I'd like to point out. I know in the proposed changes in the regulations that would impact these kinds of developments in the R2, the proposal was to say that you could have a floor ratio of 0.25 or 1,875 square feet, which is the larger of those two is what would be allowed. So I want to point out here that we're only going from 12 to 1,400 square feet. We're nowhere near the 1,850 that's been proposed as a limit on this kind of development. This does not increase the footprint of the development of the dwelling, nor will it increase the lot coverage. It does not create any new conformities, which, as we all know, is the first step to your criteria in determining whether this is allowable, and that is that it does not create any new nonconformities. We are not doing that. We will meet all other dimensional regulations, including height, and no changes are proposed to the lot. So even at the height proposed, which I believe is about 28 feet, we're going up about 3 feet, we're still 6 or 7 feet below the legal height allowed in this district, which for those of you that have gone up and down the street, you'll see many of the homes on this street are pushing that 35 feet, and there's probably a few that are over pre-existing non-conforming, but over that 35 feet. This is, again, one of the smallest and shortest homes in the neighborhood. So just to give you a quick picture, remind you of what has been proposed. In incorporating the dormer characteristics, I kind of pulled it away from the front edge of the building, pulled it away from the side of the roof, and actually pulled it farther away from the side of the roof at the front of the house, and then you can see it. The dormer, I'll refer to it, well, it's actually an upward addition, pops out where those three windows are, about 1.5 feet. And that's where the stairwell, that gives us the headroom and everything for the stairwell. And then the addition goes back 1.5 feet and then continues down to the length of the building. And you can see that step back on the dormer is proposed on both sides, although on the right-hand side of the house, we are not proposing windows in the back portion, only on the left side. So, Caitlin, if you can, the next picture is a rendering of what this would look like. And as you can see, they've integrated and are using darker materials so that they blend in to help reduce the massing and scaling. And just to remind you, the last picture, Caitlin, is just to remind you, as I understand, this is what the original intention was to essentially raise the entire roof in an upward extension, not to dormer it, but rather to have those walls come down flush with the side wall. So that was the original plan that no one liked, and then we went back to the integrating some of the dormer characteristics. And the reason I show you this is because I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the neighborhood homes that essentially are built this way, although many of them have a gambrel roof. And you may want to talk about that as an alternative here. But so moving on, and I believe I just have a couple left. As we all know, the permit criteria, one, no new addition of a nonconformity. We do not have new nonconformities. And then our analysis, as was mentioned by a number of the members, is that we cannot be substantially detrimental to the neighbor, more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming structure. In considering the size, scale, massing volume, and location of the proposed structure, extension, or alteration as compared to the existing structure, other structures in the neighborhood, and reasonable alternatives. So I have, did I give those to you? I'm sorry I was unable to get these into that format, but I did take a few select photos of the homes in our neighborhood. And I wanted to address whether or not this is substantially detrimental or not. One, with respect to the existing structure on the lot, as I've said, we're adding 154 square feet to a 1,200 square foot home. It is still one of the smallest houses in the neighborhood, and it will still be one of the shortest houses in the neighborhood after assuming we put this addition. So with respect to size, scale, massing, and volume of the proposed structure, the smallest one in the neighborhood, and we're not proposing to increase the size of this house significantly at all, rather 154 square feet. Now, what about some of the other structures in the neighborhood? If you look at some of those pictures, gentlemen, you'll see, and will verify my statement that most of the homes are taller than us. But what I found most interesting is up and down that street, there are 3-story buildings. There are 3-story buildings with a 4th-story cupola. There are just multiple examples of 3-story homes that are taller and much larger than ours. But interesting as you see, if you go into the middle, here's one of our neighbors. They're utilizing the same type of dormer characteristics that were shown there. There are 2 others directly across the street. There's one there. You can see it. It's set back from Bromfield. This is the dormer on that particular home. Here are two homes on Bromfield, both of which, as you'll see, have full-length dormers. These are right up the street from us, gentlemen. And this one was my favorite. It incorporated sort of that, what's the term for that roof style? Again, bro. And then they added a dormer onto it. These are all on Bromfield. And then this one's great. 3-story house, and look at the dormer that was approved on the street. Now, I'm not saying that because these were approved, we should be. What I'm saying is, you can't say that we're gonna be significantly detrimental in the neighborhood utilizing those dormer characteristics, when there are examples of more dramatic examples of that throughout the neighborhood itself. So I'm not sure how the addition of 154 square feet of area, the addition of these dormer characteristic addition is going to be significantly detrimental to the neighborhood. And then the other thing I did, there's a picture in here that again shows how our house sits between 7 and 11. I think it's very important that the board recall that the neighbors at 7 and 11 on either side of us have spoken in support of this project. So when we talk about adverse impacts on neighborhoods, the two neighbors that are technically really the only ones that are going to be impacted, in my opinion, are the two on either side, and they're very supportive of this. They know my client well, and they know the problems he's having with the safety of his stairs and his inability to have his family there. So they are supportive. The negative comments we've received from other butters, the one thing I found was most of them do not live on Bromfield. Some of them live on Fruit and other streets, and they will not even be able to see this. So I don't see how they can argue that this is going to be significantly more detrimental to them. I really don't. And with respect to the impact on the historic character and nature of the proposal, as I said earlier, the Historic Commission did not like our original design. They made suggestions. This board made suggestions. We modified the plan to a point where the Historic Commission, they approved the design and they lifted the ban. So I think we've done a good job of preserving the historic character of this neighborhood by working with the Historic Commission to get to a design that they found comfortable. So if I could go to the last slide, please. All right, so in conclusion, really the purpose of this was to extend the home a little to make it more functional and sustainable, but it will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. The home will meet the height and open space regulations while not increasing lot coverage or footprint. Home will not impair the integrity of character of the district, as it has been designed to be consistent with the architecture of the surrounding neighborhood. So we've satisfied the historical requirements. We're not doing anything that hasn't been done in 5, 6, maybe 7 other buildings directly in this neighborhood. And I mean on the street. You can't get any more specific in terms of neighborhood. And as I said, as I feel the proposed structure is certainly in keeping with some of those surrounding buildings, especially those recently redeveloped. The home size, scale, and massing is generally in keeping with Bromfield. We're the smallest house in the neighborhood. So, adding a little bit to it, we're not now making ourselves oversized or bigger or taller. In fact, we're still going to be the smallest, and we're still going to be one of the shortest. As far as the aesthetics, well, that's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but we feel that the new home will, the proposed addition will constitute an improvement to the property and therefore increase the value of the property, which will benefit the surrounding properties. None of the changes will be detrimental to the health and welfare of the neighborhood. In fact, the maintenance and improvement of the city's existing house stock is beneficial to said health and welfare and to the neighborhood. Again, I know that there is a push to try and preserve these smaller homes. and not to McMansion them. And that's not what's happening here. My client is addressing a safety and code violation problem and making his house more usable. He's been taxed for having a third floor bedroom since the day he bought it, and yet there isn't sufficient headroom to meet occupancy requirements. So he's looking for an opportunity to make those changes. Now, I know the board was not entirely accepting of the last designs that we did, but I have talked with our architect and he said, you know, what are the options? And she said, well, we do need to make the headroom, we have to go up to make headroom for the stairway, need to make space for the stairway, and, you know, we want to make that third floor usable. And in the reality, in adding this onto this home, it's not going to make it a McMansion. It's going to keep it in the same price range that it is now. We're only adding 154 feet, but we're going to be able to make a house that now meets code and satisfies safety requirements. So we're not making this a big home. We're making it safe, meet code, and available for the next family that needs a small 3-family home in Newburyport. Not that my client is looking to sell. In fact, he wants to make these changes so that it can be his version. So, gentlemen, I do want to discuss with you your concerns over how you feel this will be detrimental to the neighborhood, because I feel, you know, strongly that it will not be. But I also wanted you to consider that if you cannot find, you know, make the required findings to allow this to happen, you know, my client has spent a considerable amount of money redesigning this home. It costs a lot of money to do it once and then do it a second time. And, you know, the thoughts of doing it a full third time are attractive, but he is willing to do what it takes. But the only kind of change we could make that would allow us to increase put the stairways in and to get the head height for the third floor would be to, you can ignore this part, but go back to a full upward extension where we raise the walls, but we put that down. So we would be just lifting the roof like this. There wouldn't be a dormer. We wouldn't need dormers if we were able to do an upward extension like we proposed earlier, but instead of going up, we go up and in. So, you know, this style would. But before we get there, I would really like to answer any questions you have as to why this is going to be detrimental.
I think you know how the process works. You made your presentation.
Yes.
You're not here from the public. Well, thank you. Now is the time anybody in the room who might like to make a comment on this, could come to the podium and ask questions, speak in favor, speak against, whatever. If anybody has any interest in this one, raise your hand. Okay. You come up and state your name and address so you can capture it for the record.
My name is Stephen Roach, and my wife lives in here and asked to speak on her behalf. People name. And we're owners of 5 and 7 Brownfield, which are direct to Mr. Johnson. In fact, we share driveway in this subject. But we both want to voice our full and support all of
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes.
At Burnell, 13R Brownfield, so we're here right behind Ryan, and we're in full support. Okay. It would be great for the neighborhood, be good for him, be good for the community, be a great asset to the community. And I actually would hate to see him start looking elsewhere.
Hi, Eileen Connor. I am a rear butter in 13R as well. Share the with Bruno. I want to enthusiastically endorse this project. I'm really appreciative of Mr. Johnson's conscientious communication with all of us in our neighborhood, explaining this project. giving us feedback and just being respectful in general and neighborly of this addition to his home, both aesthetically and, you know, impact in our neighborhood is a net positive. And at 13R, we actually do have we will have a view of the roof line here. And given that, he's done a really wonderful job of addressing all concerns, and I am an enthusiastic supporter.
Thank you. Sorry, yes.
Mark Sheehan, 42 Ferry, lived on Brookfield for 4 years, actually in Brookfield. It's often still, and I believe it's not a detriment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, this application started last year before we went to only taking comments from within the room. So we now see if there's anybody online out there. There is no one anyway. So you're all here tonight. Thank you. It's much better to have people here in person. Okay, with that, we close public comment. And now we go to questions from who here on the board would like to begin?
Attorney Duchesne,
Yes.
I can't find in the file the letter. Is it in there? I can't see it. You have the
I actually have a copy of the minutes from the meeting.
wonderful. I can't find it in our record.
Okay, no, I'm happy to share it.
Oh,
So here's the meeting minutes from May, where they voted that it was historically significant and subject to preservation. This is the meeting, in which they approved the redesign and lifted.
Mr. Bennett, so this was not, there would not be a historical report.
Okay.
It was just a demo delay application.
Okay,
Right, anything else?
no, well, I'm not finished. So is this now in the record?
I'm gonna email all these minutes to you. I'm sure they're in the city's record somewhere. Email them.
Can you just summarize what this document says?
Sure. Well, could I borrow the document?
For sure.
We cut to the chase for you, I know. Taking up a lot of time. Andrew Bernhardt moved to approve the revised plans with the conditions that the siding materials shall be specified as cementitious clapboards, and the returns shall be removed, and vote to lift the demo delay. It was seconded by Mr. Marquis, and the motion was approved 5-0.
Was the demolition delay imposed on the original application?
Yes, it was. Yes, on the upward extension where we were just going straight up.
Right. You handed us a batch of photographs?
Yes.
Did you go through these and identify the? Or is that not going to be possible?
I'm happy to do whatever it takes. It'll take the time, but to be honest with you, I'm just gonna look at those pictures and pick up as many street numbers I can, but I am here to stand in front of you and tell you that I took those pictures not 2
I'm
hours
not
ago,
debating the.
and every one of them is on Bromfield.
Okay. Well, maybe to help me out, I think you told me to please identify those photographs that depict adjacent up and down the street and across.
Okay. Well, the pictures that show the houses on either side and up and down the street are in my presentation.
Well, are they in your batch of photos as well?
Now they're in the presentation only, Kate, right up at the top. Right there. You can see we have the yellow home to our left, the right, and a gray home to the left. I think the owners of those homes are here. I'm sorry,
Okay.
and again, I mean, for instance, I can tell you that, again, by looking at the pictures, and yours are clearer than mine, Many of them I tried to get the house number, but again, I can testify that every one of them is in the immediate neighborhood on Bromfield Street.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Who would like to go next? Larry?
Just a follow-up question on the homes that have dormers that are showing in these, were those dormers put on before the city had dormer regulation?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I am using them as an example of showing what the existing character of the neighborhood is.
Okay. Thank you.
Because our analysis is with respect to the existing neighborhood. So I don't know how or why they were put on. I just know they exist in no less than 5 or 6 homes on Brom.
Will both these dormers be visible from the street?
Well, if you're standing straight onto the home, you'll see the edges of them, yes. And if you move to the side, at least until you're blocked, your view is blocked by the yellow house, like if you look up there. If we were to move to the right, you'll see that that roof is obscured quite quickly by that yellow home. And the same is true on the other side. That home is also closer to the street than we are. So you really have to be on the street looking straight at the house, and you will be able to see the end of the dormers. Yes. And depending on the angle you can get, you might be able to see a little bit of it. Again, it will be only those standing on the directly in front of the house or at a slight angle.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, John?
Can you tell me if the applicant, or their architect ever looked at expanding the kitchen?
The back.
And not doing a full dormer of the third floor, but keeping the front gable even raised in its new form, but doing kind of like a half story dormer up there for,
Off the, an addition on the back piece.
but expanding over over the kitchen.
No, because, you know, it was really an attempt to just make the floor of, you know, that floor area of the third floor more usable. You know, without creating more mass on the building, really. I mean, other than the mass from the addition, but to go around and add a whole second story addition, it would give him another small room on the second floor, but it wouldn't do anything to make the third floor, you know, viable or occupied. I mean, it is occupiable and used, but it doesn't meet code.
But let me rephrase. My question is just to not do the bedroom in the front. Say that the bedroom in the front, the top floor, ended up over the kitchen. You still do the dormer. A lot of the dormers you see in the pictures you shared are smaller in overall length. They're some of them aren't. Some of them are full size, but many of them are like a little bit smaller. And I think most people's reaction is to just what you see from the street. So if the dormer was set back, say, a third of the building's depth, so that the stair comes up and you still have a bedroom on the third floor that's usable, but you've expanded that last kind of portion of the 154 square feet or so.
Could we go to the picture, Kevin, that down below that showed the I'm sorry, that picture. So what we've done, as you can see, is at the front of the house, which is the picture on the left is more, shows more front than the left side of the house. We've actually, the dormer characteristics, it's stepped back from that front edge, I think, a foot and a half or more. And then it's stepped back from the edge of the roof a foot and a half. But that first section of the dormer at the front of the house is set back an additional 1.5 feet from the section that has the 3 windows. So it's actually, the dormer, the end of the dormer that faces the street is quite small. You know what I'm saying? It's a 1.5 feet shorter than the actual width of the dormer when you get to the middle. So in some ways, they've done that. But without at least putting that much to the front, that whole front of the 3rd floor is unusable. Unusable. Also, that's.
Okay, thank you, John. Stephen or Jared, would you like to?
Yeah, just, when we met with the applicant and the architect last time, which was a long time ago, so I'm a little bit, but even though I didn't think I listened to this again. But there was considerable, I think there was a considerable amount of suggestion from the board that the plans be looked at again and some changes made.
Yes, sir.
And so now you're back with the same plan. But then sort of at the end of your presentation, you said, well, if you don't like this, we'll do other plans, but he really doesn't want to.
Well, the cost of redesigning this is astronomical to go from where we were when we started to here. To now redesign something else without having, specific understanding of what would or would not be acceptable is just a lot of money and a lot of
Yeah,
time.
but that's my point. I think at the last meeting, specific understanding as to what everyone was talking about, I think.
Well, I reviewed the meeting minutes, so I gleaned what I could from that. But the one thing that I saw in reviewing everything was that, there was never any mention of why were they doing it? What, the fact that we have a dangerous and hazardous structure, and that no matter what we do to add to the, to renovate or add, we're gonna be forced by building code to upgrade those stairs in any event. So now we need to make space for that to happen. And especially with the height to the 3rd floor. So I'm suggesting that we don't know, my client, although if he knows that if he spends the money to redesign this and understands what needs to be done, I'm not saying he's not worth trying. But the question I have for the board is, do you feel now in understanding why this is being done, what the restraints were on him in doing this, and the fact that all of the abutting neighbors are in support of this, and does that help at all with respect to your analysis of whether this is significantly detrimental to the neighborhood? At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is the detrimental impact that this is going to have on the neighborhood. And I, with all due respect, I can't agree that it will have a detrimental impact on the historical character of the neighborhood in light of the fact that the Historic Commission pushed us to this design and then accepted it and lifted the design demolition delay. So I don't really believe it can be said that we're being significantly detrimental to the historic neighborhood. So now you look at, well, massing, scaling, and impacts. The only 2 neighbors that are going to have any physical, impact, maybe a little light, are the 2 neighbors on either side and in the rear, and they've all said that they think it's a great idea and it's going to be a benefit. That's a far cry from significantly detrimental.
Right, so, okay, so how do you get over the hurdle when you compare it to the existing structure, as you talk about scale and massing? You compare what you're proposing and that height and the dormers, or they're not really dormers, right? The issue that they're not dormers, they're just extensions.
I'll put extension.
Right. So when we look at that, how do we deal with the issue of size, scale, and massing when compared to the existing structure? And then also, how do we look at it when you think about it, the third prong there, which is reasonable alternatives?
Well, I mean, as far as the first consideration, or the first of the two that you mentioned, which would be considering the size, scale, massing, and location of the structure as it relates to the other structures.
No, to the existing structure.
Right. It's not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, more not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming structure. Considering size, scale, mass, and volume and location of the proposed structure or extension as it compares to other structures and lots in the neighborhood.
No, you're
So-
not answering.
Well, first of all, I don't think we are dramatically increasing the size.
No, you've talked about it. Can you answer the question that I'm asking, right? Which is the other problem, as it compares to the existing structure. You're going off and telling me about other things. I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about the existing structure.
Well, with respect to the existing structure
If we compare what exists now,
and what we're proposing to do, one, I don't think we are significantly increasing the size of this structure. We're adding 154 feet of living space, and we're raising the roof less than 3 feet.
the
And
ridge, right? You're talking about the ridge, or the mean perhaps, not the ridge, the mean, right? But what about those sidewalks? I think that's really where push comes to shove, the side.
okay, so you think that that creates more scaling and massing than should be? Right? That compared to what's there
Certainly
today,
creates more.
this constitutes a significant increase in scale and mass.
It certainly creates more.
It does. Of course, we're adding volume and mass, but not significant. We're not adding 6 feet to this roof. We're not expanding the walls out. We're not even expanding the walls out to where the walls on the lower walls are. You know, I mean, this, it's in and it's small. I just don't.
But the team was so cognizant of this that they colored it differently to camouflage.
Yeah.
So I mean.
Everything that we can do to reduce that appearance of volume and mass, and of course we do. I'm just saying, net, this is just not a, voluminous addition to this home.
All right, yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delisle. Mr. Arterman, do you have anything? Yeah, I don't either, I think. My questions were asked in the 2 long hearings we had last summer. So we'll close questions from the board and we'll move to deliberation. For this thing to pass, it requires to pass our 2-prong test. So please, who's ever starting the deliberations, consider that. Who would like to begin?
Well, I'd like to begin just because it's such a long record and the attorney is new. And there are some misunderstandings, I think, of what was said. I'm going to go over that. First hearing we had on this, I believe, was July 8th. One of the flaws, Counselor, with that hearing was that no one, the board members were here in person, but none of the people testifying on behalf of the applicant actually appeared. And I think, that definitely was a hindrance to communication. So for example, the audio is never good. So I don't question for a minute that you weren't able to hear much on the tapes. But remember that this was July. Mansionization actually never came up. And I don't think I haven't heard ever since that it was a consideration by this board. But we had cases that started to come before us in the fall. Erie Avenue and Harding Avenue. And that's where it came up. What came up in this case, the Bjorkland case, which does talk about mansionization, was, the architect did not understand why, if there was no, exacerbation of I'm sorry, there was no new nonconformity, why they even needed finding from us under state law. And I pointed out to her, your case, that's where it came up. And it came up in another context too. The first way it comes up is, since Bjork, it's settled that any substantial enlargement of a single or a two-family house, your sized lot, does in fact increase the non-conforming nature. It is an exacerbation. Therefore, that's been settled. It's 20 years. The architect didn't know that. They didn't have an attorney. We also pointed out in this discussion over Dormer, there was a lot of misunderstanding by the applicant at first, and the applicant went and met with staff. The staff reported to us by email that they had thought that we were saying that the Dormer standards that are mandatory in the downtown overlay district were being imposed. That was not correct. We said to them, we look to, and I know you acknowledged it in your own presentation, we look to those guidelines to tell us what is a dormer versus a vertical addition. And we fully recognize that the applicant was not proposing a dormer. And in fact, in their written memorandum signed by the architect, they described the project as, quote, third-story vertical addition in place of the existing attic. That was the application. I want to be clear. That was the application. Third-story vertical addition in place of the existing attic. We also pointed out, I don't think I was the only one, that in Yorkland, it's dictum. But in Yorkland, they're saying, well, when is something substantially detrimental and when isn't it? And the court gave some examples of things that they feel usually wouldn't be. And one of them was a simple dormer. And so we communicated that to the applicant and we urged them to show us a way that they can come close, they can approach the dormer standards. We did not require them to do that. They can approach and show us if you can't. I remember saying this, if you can't, tell us why you can't. So for example, they did tell us about the stairs. It's on the record. And we discussed it on the record. We were aware of it. We did not question the necessity of it, changing it, even though this is an historic building. So they can get an exception. They don't have to. The building inspector can give a leave for that. And the building, of course, has been legally occupied all these years with the non-code compliant stairs. But we didn't question that. What came up was that's only one side. And we asked them, why do you have to do these big shed-like extensions on both sides if the stairs are on one side? And the way we left the meeting, the architect was quite frustrated with us and said, I don't know that I want my client to go through this exercise, she put it, in order to redesign. The client on the line said, no, I'm going to think about it and maybe consider a redesign. That's July. Then they came back to us. Just to be clear, there has never been a redesign for us. Never. The drawings that they showed us on July 8th are still the drawings today. There's never been any attempt to address our suggestion about trying to make this thing look less massive. Now, since just as mansionization didn't come up, the only time aesthetics came up was there was a former man, but who said, in my opinion, when you just do dormers, it's ugly. And he preferred there to be a full floor. And he said, I have a dormer on my house. And we said, is it on both sides? And he said, no. That's the only place aesthetics. Instead, where we've been focused this whole time is the usual, quote, relevant factors. Size, scale, massing, volume, location. And to be clear, we're focusing on Oregon. We heard from the applicant, he was already using the third. So he made that very clear. That he was not creating new living space. And I also heard what you said, which is that the tax assessor, they consider it living space and they've been taxing. it. So it's not new living space. And again, we didn't care about that anyway. But as far as the impact, what we said, what I said is the streetscape. We're trying to decide whether it's substantially more detrimental based on the streetscape. And we looked at, as compared to the existing structure in the existing lot, other structures and other lots in the neighborhood, and reasonable alternatives. That's what our code says. We went through each of them. I know at the second meeting where the architect showed up in person, I said on the record, I went through these three things for her. I'm going to do it again. I know that you're thinking, because you were focused on what's not mansionization, which was never an issue for us here. You were saying this is the smallest house. Well, in fact, because it's the smallest house on the smallest lot, that's why a mass change on the roof is more momentous, has more impact. Again, going back to, we have to look at the peculiarities of each case. This lot only has 29 feet of front, okay? The requirement is 90. You're a third, not a third, not even. The minimum lot size is supposed to be 10,000. Now, this is the South. Not everyone's got. You don't even have 5,000. You don't even have 2,500. This is, Ron Champetti's had to step back and be confident, and he knows he's been on this commission since he was in high school. So he would know best. I can't remember a case with a lot this small. We've seen some small, still have to be small. Okay. So also the setbacks. Not only do you not have 10 feet from the people on either side of it, you don't have 5 feet. It's under 5 feet. It's like we related all that to the applicant. And we led to them, why don't you try designing something now first? Something they never did. And then we've been told a couple times now since you came on, they're just going to hold with what they have. They want to go for what they have. And I'll comment. I still think it's substantially more detrimental. This design, there's nothing inherently wrong with trying to accommodate a bigger stair. There's been no effort by the designer to figure out a way to make this less impactful. No question in my mind, knowing the street. Again, the particular end of the street. I go down there and park my car, I walk around, look at the buildings across the street on either side. Yes, of course, we recognize when an abutter is not agreed. They say we support it because we know they're not going to sue if we approve it. We got that. But our duty is to look at the context. And the context in the neighborhood are everybody's got a gable roof on that end of the street. This is going to be substantially detrimental in my mind, vis-a-vis what's already there. It's going to exacerbate this mass on a postage stamp lot unnecessarily. There are other ways that you can get your staircase in that haven't even been explored. And we also know from the hundreds of other cases that we've seen in the city, it can be done. There are a lot of historic buildings in town that they have been able to do something more modest that isn't going to be as massive. And they've never been on as small. You get my point. An example, I think, would be the 1.5-story building on Center Street. I think it's 7 Center Street. I don't know that came before us. I don't think it did. I walk by it all the time. They made their top floor, which was under eaves, usable, with a much more modest mass. And then the question you got from our new associate member, again, he's looking at alternatives, which was our duty. Is there an alternative? Again, if you ran the new staircase up the back, nobody would see it, and you wouldn't need to build as much mass that would be noticeable from the street. We hadn't thought of that before, that's new. He's an architect, and we hadn't thought of that. It's a new suggestion. And the only people that would even see that would be the abutters in the back who are fine with that. Right? You wouldn't see anything. So I just want to make clear that we did know what the goals were, which is to get the staircase. We did know that it was existing living space. We're not trying to deny the use of this space. I don't think it is being denied now, but and no one begrudges the owner from increasing the value of this. No one. It did not at all. He can sell it for a gazillion dollars. It's none of our business. But that's what we were looking at. And I'm still, because you haven't changed the design that we saw in July, I can't make the finding that it's not substantially detrimental. I still believe it is. I can't support it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Who next would like to deliberate here on the board? Anybody? Yes, Mr. Lee.
So I have to say, when I looked through and I didn't see a new set of plans, I was surprised and disappointed. It's been a long time, almost a year, and I felt like we were pretty clear. And then to come back today and see, kind of looking at the same thing, a little bit glossed over with a lot of language, and then darkening up the dormers, which are extensions. I've struggled with the upward extensions from street view because I think they're dormers. So, but that's just, a layman's view. I wish you had come back with a new design for us to consider, because I think Jared has the right. Like we want this gentleman to be able to enjoy his house and make nice renovations to the house, but we didn't like this almost a year ago, and at least I'm not in favor of it because nothing's changed for me. But we would like to see some nice changes.
Just deliberate. I got pictures.
1 minute, please.
We'll give you a chance, yeah, but let's go through the, anybody else like to deliberate here? Stephen, Greg, John.
Yeah, I would agree with what Chairman
Okay. Thank you,
The fact that I obviously wasn't here for the presentations. When talking about reasonable alternative, considering expanding over the kitchen feels like a reasonable alternative to move some floor to the second floor in the back, and I would just encourage considering that. I'm not a voting member on this.
thank you, Mr. Hardy. Mr. Bennett, would you like to say anything? Yeah. And I don't need to say anything that has already. Well, at this point, I don't think you want us to vote. So, would you like us to entertain a motion to continue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I assure you that I won't be back here unless I have any business.
Okay, and when would you like to continue to?
Give me a full month.
And do we, Kayla, do we have any availability at our meeting in a month? Or do we vote?
Yeah, May 26th is,
May 26th is available. All right, is that a date that you would like
Yes.
us? All right,
Will be
I'd like a motion, somebody like to make a motion to continue this until May 26th. Good motion. Good second. All right, we will vote, Mr. Delisle. Yes. Mr. Guy. Yeah. Driver.
Yes.
Yeah. I vote yes, that's fine. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you for
again.
your time, consideration. I especially appreciate you sort of giving me more understanding of what I do appreciate it. Will, thank you very much.
Now we need to retrieve our chair.
Okay, Picking up on our next public hearing, we have the application of Jason Field, care of Lisa Mead, Talleyrand and Costa. This is the application for 180 High Street. It's a continuation from March 24th, 2026. This is an application for a variance to construct a pool within the front yard Winter Street setback. May we hear from the applicant? Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Lisa Mead, Talleyrand Costa, 30 Green Street. For the record, and with me this evening is Jason and Jody Field, who are sitting in the back. Sonia Champion, who is the landscape architect for this project, as well as Everett Chandler, who is the surveyor on the project. Jason and Jody are proposing, they own the property at 180 High Street, if you go on, please. Which is on the corner of High and Winter Street. It is in the R3 zoning district, and the property is pre-existing non-conforming secondary front setback. Secondary front setback is High Street because of the change in the law regarding corner lots. Primary front yard setback is, the High Street setback is 18.5 feet where 20 feet is required, and the rear setback is 9.4 where 20 feet is required. That rear setback is opposite Winter Street, which is the primary front yard setback. The lot and the home have existed before the change and was imposed upon the corner lots, the burden of carrying 2 front yards. Important and clearly the front yard of this home, practically speaking, hang on, Caitlin, you're like, wait. Practically speaking, the front yard of this home, as you all recognize, is High Street, notwithstanding the corner lot requirements, naming Winter Street as the primary. So many of you will recognize this. So this is on the rail trail side of High Street looking east. And that's the home next slide. And those front of the home, take note of the large beech tree on the right hand side. Next slide, please. There's the beech tree in the summer. Next slide. And here is the Winter Street side, primary front yard, if you will. Next slide, please. And then that step back a little bit, but you can see it's a good perspective of the size of that tree on Winter Street. Next slide, please. And this is just a little bit further down High Street looking west. Next slide, please. And this is the tree in bloom, again looking northwest. Next slide. So the proposal is to construct an in-ground swimming pool to be located 6 feet 2 inches from the front yard setback. The 20 feet is required. Again, that's Winter Street in this instance. Next slide. So in accordance with section 6F10 of the zoning ordinance, in-ground swimming pools may not be located in the front yard setback unless the front yard setback would be 20 feet in this instance. Pool, as I said, is located 6.2 feet from the primary front yard setback on Winter Street, and therefore variance is required. So just to do an overview, you see the proposed location of the pool at the back. That's the blue. High Street is at the bottom of the screen of the slide, and then Winter Street is on the right-hand side. So the proposal is to build that pool towards the back, away from the tree at the front of, and then it will have walls and fences around it, as well as vegetation in that back area to help with the landscape appearance of it. And just to give you an idea of that, Sonia did a sketch. If you go to the next slide, please. So the idea is they'll have a small rock wall along the bottom of the street up there, an extension of where the fence currently exists. The fence is a 4-foot fence. You can see where it kind of meets up at the top. So this is a lower wall. And then there'll be a tier up where there is landscaping, and then a tier up where there is the fence at the back. And if you could just go to the next slide, I'm going to give you 2 samples of this. Just many of you have probably driven up Kent Street, taken right on High Street, and this has a similar situation. So you see the vegetation along the sidewalk, and it tiers up then, and then there's more vegetation, and it tiers up again where you have the fence. If you go one more slide, and this is looking into that driveway, so you get an idea of how the topography is similar on Kent Street as it is on Winter Street, and this drops down as you go to the river, of course. But you can see how the back of this property is a little higher as opposed to where the drive is. But so I just wanted you to see an application in reality of what we're looking at for the end of the property. Next slide, please. So the property's condition is, let's talk about the condition of the property related to the circumstances that are unique to it. In this particular instance, there is a natural feature, the beech tree, that is preventing the owners from complying with the setbacks. But for their desire to save the tree, which is clearly very prominent and important to the streetscape, the owners could put a pool. I'll show you that at the very end. So they could put a pool in this lot in compliance on the Winter Street side, but it comes up closer to the tree, and which is why we had the report of the arborist, which I provided to you. The corner lot is not of their making. Tree is not of their making. Indeed, if there was still a side yard, they would meet the setback requirements of the side yard. The existing dwelling predates the ordinance. And of course, as I said, the tree is a natural condition that they did not create, and it's related to the soil conditions of the land. Also, this condition is unique to this property. While there are a few silver beech trees left on High Street, none stand as prominent as a location, and certainly as one surveys the property around 180 High Street, there are no more prominent trees than this one in this area. Particularly, there are none on corner lots, as is stated. The question also is that will the literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance involve a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise? In this case at hand, the imposition of the ordinance would unreasonably involve a substantial hardship, not only because the owners are not being able to use all of their property where they could if they located the pool closer to the tree, but also it would involve the removal of the tree, which would be a financial hardship if they decided to do that, and removing that natural feature. And can the relief be granted without substantial detriment to the public good? Here, the board can grant relief without derogating from the purpose and intent of the ordinance and without substantial detriment to the public good. The change of definition of the corner lots was to prevent encroachment upon other streets and maintain streetscapes ostensibly. Here, Winter Street is bordered by Route 1, and there's no imposition to those, if any, across Winter Street. It could be Summer Street or Route 1. Further, the pool will continue to cover to be over 15 feet away from the street and will be screened by a fence and landscaping. And the requested relief can be awarded without substantial detriment to the public good, because saving the tree is just the opposite and will be in fact better for the public than locating the pool in the location that will meet the setbacks, but will impact the tree greatly or even require removal of the tree. And can you do it without substantially derogating from the purpose and intent? Again, the proposal would not derogate from the purpose and intent of the ordinance. In fact, saving the tree would be in line with promoting health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the city of Newburyport. The importance of saving old growth trees has a value to the environment as well as the community. And they also would not be receiving special consideration because they can actually put a pool in compliance with the ordinance in this particular instance, which we're going to show you in a minute. So if you go to the next slide. And the next slide. Okay. So the other, I also talked about the unique conditions. If you could go on to the next slide, please. And again, as I noted, it wouldn't be specific relief as I went through the criteria before for the ordinance in section 10. Next slide, please. And then, as I noted, also the applicant agrees that it will be employing an arborist as needed for pruning and oversight during construction, and we would accept that condition related to this proposal. You have the arborist report that notes that if the pool is located where we can legally put the pool, there would be significant root damage that would occur. But if it is located further away and done carefully, that would be beneficial. And also the lifting of the improvements and the loosening up of the dirt and allowing more water to go through will also be improvements related to the lifespan of the tree. Next slide, please. And I just want to show you, this is the legal location that we could locate the pool without any relief whatsoever. So again, this is not a special privilege that would be granted, as the applicants can locate a pool. However, we think that the better location of the pool related to particularly saving the tree would be where we propose to put it. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Mead. With that, we'll close the presentation and go to public comment. Anyone?
Excuse me 1 minute, Mr. Chair. I forgot to tell you, we did provide letters of support from all of the from both sides, the butters on both sides, both on High Street as well as Winter Street, and then on further down Winter Street. So we provided 6, 7 letters of support.
All of those letters are part of our.
Yes, you have them.
Okay, so
Yes.
very good. Thank you. With that, and having closed the presentation portion, we'll go to public comment. Anyone in the room wish to be heard in connection with the application? So just kindly raise your hand and come on up to the podium and we will hear you. Seeing no hands, we have only 2 individuals online. Anyone who, among the 2 folks that are online, I see 2 individuals that have their names associated with their Zoom ID. If you wish to be heard, just go ahead and virtually raise your hand and we will unmute your mic, ask you to do the same, and we will hear from you. Seeing no hands online and none in the room, I will close public comment and go to questions from the board. In no particular order, anyone who wishes to kick things off. Let's see.
No, go ahead. In the cover letter that was submitted, you referenced an attached arborist report.
Yes.
It wasn't attached.
It was filed. It's filed with the application.
Take a look and see it attached.
We have an arch. We have an arch report right here.
No,
Sorry, I thought it was attached. Yeah.
Is there something in the report that says we have far should be safe?
So yeah, so you see that picture right there, that's the location here. Let me just give you the comments. So an ideal situation, a 50-foot DBH tree, 50-inch DBH tree would have a 50 to 70 feet of soil area available. Which is a significant area. The tree is limited by hardscape and structures. That's the current situation. A pool installation in this area would likely require cutting roots 2 feet or more in diameter, affecting health and stability of the tree. So that would be on that situation. And then if you go back up to one of the first slides, which is the pool located at the back. His conclusion, the pool installation in this area would not have much effect on stability, but feeder roots would still need to be compromised, which is why you would need to take care during the construction with an arborist.
And my other question is, was there consideration for making?
Well, it's actually not a huge pool to begin. Do you have the size of it?
Like 14 by 28.
Yeah, I think one of the sheets has the dimensions.
Okay.
You just have to zoom in a bit.
So even locating it, if you located it closer to up where it was legal and made it smaller, it still would be in the root zone that the arborist says should not be, would require major roots.
If it was the same size and shape as this thing, but rotated so it wasn't in the front setback, pushed close to the driveway. Would that be?
Yeah, because you still, the front of the pool comes up to the root zone, the big root, the larger root zone of. So we did flip the pool around a number of different ways. The problem is anytime you flip it, and so it runs parallel to Winter Street, then it becomes an issue with the tree.
Anything further? Mr. Swan?
Yeah, I mean, I follow on to Mr. Hardy's. And my question, if I might go to the board here, is, right now the pool, there's a green area between the pool and the driveway. What is that?
Oh, that's the planting. So there is if you go to the next slide, there's a retaining wall. So there's a retaining wall at the back of the drive. You can see it, the back of the pool on the left side of the drive.
Right, could you go back to the, plot plan there? Could you blow it up a little bit where the pool is? What I don't understand is if the pool was closer to the driveway, it'd be further from the roots. Quite get it. And I also, this question, I thought was an excellent one. If you rotated the pool, so it went up and down, this area right here, which is the closest to the tree, I realize you'd be replacing it with some over here, but it's not clear to me that that pool is in the best place to protect the tree. And my other concern is you're only 6 feet, 2 inches from the sidewalk. I mean, I am aware of a pool in that neighborhood, maybe 2 blocks to the east on Market Street. But that pool is set back 20 feet from the sidewalk, not 6 feet. So the other benefit of rotating it and sliding it back would also be get it off the sidewalk. I mean, I have sympathy for you're on a corner lot and a pool. You gotta put a pool somewhere if you want to have a pool. And I also applaud your trying to save that really incredible tree. But it's not clear to me that I don't quite understand why you didn't consider getting it closer to the driveway and rotating it.
So I think there's a,
Chairman, whether DEC, I created this plan with the assistance of Sonia Champion. So the grade difference as you go down Winter Street is fairly substantial. So what that is, that's 2 walls, 4-foot walls. So you're not looking at an 8-foot wall up against the driveway as you come up Winter Street. So this provides screening and shade and a transition from the driveway to the pool. So even though you're 6 feet from the sidewalk, you won't even know the pool is there behind the screening and the walls.
I have no other question.
Just wanted, Mr. Agnew. This is my question. So the footprint of the building, we have to take into account whether the applicant has changed the conditions on the lot. My understanding is that the building was expanded in recent years by this owner. When did that occur?
yeah, there was an existing porch that was closed.
But the exterior wall is now nearest to the proposed pool. How long has that wall been standing?
The porch didn't run to the back of the house, the extension of a year. It just poured concrete.
So they extended the porch to the back wall.
I only asked when the construction was done.
A year ago, she said.
Further questions, Mr. Agnew? Any further questions?
I was gonna ask, just following up on, how high above the sidewalk level would the swimming pool be at the conference? I mean, they were talking about 2 4-foot walls, or I think the Chandler said.
So if you look on that plan close, you can't see it, but the wall is 4 feet. The interior wall is 4 feet, the exterior wall on the driveway is 8 feet, but it drops as it gets closer to the street. And then it diminishes as it goes up the street because of the change in grade.
Right, so at the location where the pool would be, you're looking at a wall. How high above you would it be if you were walking past on the sidewalk?
Right, so you could, go to the next slide, please. So that first wall, the rocks, if you will.
Right. No, I know.
So it's
Somebody
gonna
wants to
be-
know the actual elevation.
Oh, so at the top of the fence or
No, just the top of the grade where the pool deck will be. Or
So it's 8 feet.
side,
8 feet?
Oh.
8 feet.
yeah.
Step back.
And then does the, in the ordinance, does 6J, does that have any effect on this project?
I mean, so, 6J, you're talking about the dimensional. Yeah,
The fences on the corners.
yeah, so that one doesn't, but visibility from driveways does. So the fences on the corners doesn't.
Because you've got enough depth.
Correct, that's exactly right. The fences on the driveways, which is 6K, does, except for that it doesn't apply here because you're only turning right out of the drive because it's one way.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, well,
Further question? Anyone?
I just have something that there's a large proposed pool patio. Is that permeable?
so it's yes, the answer is yes, it's permeable and it's, pursuant to the recommendations of the arborist. The way it's built allows for water to go down and air to be in so that the roots actually would be in better shape than. I was actually surprised it was so healthy because of the packing and the location of the street.
Is there, any further questions? Just sort of separate question from the arborist report. Is there a approximate age on the tree? It's just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I know. So it's about 50 feet in height. And so he said 100 to 150 years, right? He said some properties just be 400 years. But between 100 and,
Well, yeah,
right?
he said that he's talking about the lifespan of a European beach.
Right.
It could be in the range of 100 to 150, but it maybe is.
So I know that there are, in the early 1800s, just so you know, there were a number of these covered beaches planted around the city. We had one in the back of the office. There's this one on High Street. There was one on High Street at the above, on Federal Street that had to be taken down.
Hands.
That one, and then there's further down on High Street, above, up from Johnson Street, in the graveyard in the back, there's one, and there's one in front of, next to the Tinge. So they were all brought over, issued, not brought over, but planted or around the early 1800s, as far as we know.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll close that portion and we'll go into deliberations. And again, we're deliberating the criteria for a variance. So perhaps whoever leads off in the deliberations, if we can just sort of restate the criteria for the record and for the audience. And yeah. Who wishes to kick things off?
Well, Ken already did his opinion. I'll go next. I mean, I also, of course, sympathize with trying to save those beech tree. The record, there's a beech tree in the shared backyard of the condominium I live in. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to keep it alive. Like, personally, I understand. The problem here is variance. So there are specific findings that have been made for state law, and then there's an elaboration under our code, and I'll read some of them as the chair asks. The Board of Appeals, in section 6A of Roman 10-H. Zoning Board of Appeals finds that owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land or structure, especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it's located. A literal enforcement provisions of this ordinance would involve, quote, substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good without nullifying or substantially derogating the intent or purpose of this variance. Attorney Mead gave arguments how they meet some of those. In our code, it goes on to say the power to vary the application of the zoning ordinance must be sparingly exercised only in rare instances and under exceptional circumstances, peculiar in their nature, and with due regard to the main purpose of the zoning ordinance to preserve the property rights of others. Before the variance is granted, the court must find the following conditions to be present and restored. Conditions and circumstances are unique to the applicant's lot structure, building do not apply to neighboring land structure in the district. 2, the strict application of provisions of this chapter to deprive the applicant of reasonable use for building in a manner equivalent to use permitted to be made by other members of their neighboring land structures and buildings in the same district. 3, the unique conditions and circumstances are not the result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of this chapter. 4, relief will not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with limitations upon other properties in the district. And it goes on and on. There's a lot. It's hardship. Doesn't, the applicant has created himself. That's what my question was coming from. So look, do I think that this design of a pool is good? Chopping down the tree and building a pine pool, of course I do. We have professional designers who figured out a way to do it, but I don't see how we can make the findings. And one thing that I just want to point out is that, it's hard for us to ignore that, you did the addition. I'm looking at the description of the line. Project cost was estimated at $325,000 just for physical change. I don't know. This was back in 2004. It was issued on December. Move existing side porch and rebuild porch per plan. Interior partial renovation, first and partial selective renovation, second floor. This permit shall include new kitchen and first floor bath and second floor bathroom. Existing porch balustrades to be reused where possible and rebuilt per plan. There should be no deck above roof. Pool shed and the pool shall be permitted under a separate permit. Obviously, they had in mind at the time. It was a separate. So the point here is that you were on notice of this issue. So how can you both expand your house and build a pool that's compliant? That puts us in a tight spot. You heard from others about, well, why don't you rotate the pool? Maybe it won't be as far away, distant from the tree as the arborist ideally would like. But as far as the denying you a pool use, that's a tough one for us to hang our hat on. There's some constitutional right implicated by not letting you there. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm sympathetic. I don't have any problem with the pool. So realize, you're going to put up a big fence. That's your right. Do that. This doesn't relate to anything. I just don't think we can make the findings here. This is not in Boston. In Boston, they don't really care. They care who's going to do it. Not the experience I've had here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eichmann. Further deliberation? Anyone wish to add to, yes, Mr. Ginta?
Usually when it comes to these variances, I'm always on the opposite side. I understand the rules, but I look at this as common sense. And when you talk about trees, especially a tree this significant to the city puts prices on trees. They will refuse to cut trees down. They will make sidewalks that do that. Brand new sidewalks do not kill the tree. In this instance, they are spending a lot of money and a lot of time to save the tree. To make all this work on their property, and I get that, I appreciate that, what you're doing. I know you could legally put your pool in, and you are gonna kill that tree. Because you're gonna have to cut enough of that tree away under the ground, it is gonna die. And that's not something the city of Newburyport would ever allow to happen if this was on public. So I understand that. So I think you've done your best to save an asset to the city. And I also think the way you position the pool with high walls, I've walked this street a million times. I realize you're street level when you're at the tree, but by the time you get to the driveway, it's way high and it's very private. I think you've done a very good job in a tough situation here. But all that you've done for the tree is wonderful because let's face it, 30, 40 years ago, they would have just cut the tree down. They wouldn't even thought about it. So that's just my thoughts. I realize the rules and stuff, but I think they've gone out of the way to do the right thing.
So your sensibility, just out of curiosity, you're kind of aligned with the effort is worthy of the impact to findings and the challenge of making those technical findings.
Correct. But I don't mind that to what the city of Newburyport would not with this tree again.
Right. Where this public. Scott, I appreciate that, Mr. Kenta.
Yeah.
Anything, any further deliberations? Yes, Mr. Hardy.
So when it comes to the buy rate, it's the pool is located, you know, worst possible position. But the area where the pool could be located is significantly sizable than that, extending to where the driveway is. As a non-voting member, I'm going to see the applicant try to locate the pool in a way that both preserves the tree and finds a solution that fits within at least a much less of a variance request, 6 feet. I think that there's an opportunity to rotate the pool and probably get it further from the tree, maybe reducing the pool size. I think that there's more opportunities here to the applicant to do something by right or with just a lesser variance. It's worth exploring.
I appreciate that. I have to say, just to sort of add my own thoughts to this, obviously, it doesn't bear explanation needed for Attorney Mead on behalf of our clients to know the challenges that the board's up against when it comes to running this through the prism of our very rigid and not stoic legal criteria, especially with the variance. That said, in the practical world, which is where, you know, obviously we all live, but I find myself often persuaded and moved by how things run through that lens, the practical lens. I mean, many of us in this room, perhaps most of us in this room, remember this property when it was the Oddfellows home. And the renovation that happened was part of an adaptive reuse. And then these owners, as further stewards of that property, allow it to continue to live in our time. A structure that may well have, you know, fallen under its own gravity otherwise. The preservation of a tree, especially this, a copper beech, I've seen this. I've been on this board long enough to just share this quickly. I've seen our effort as a board probably more than a decade and a half ago. Across the street from what was Kathy Ann's Bakery, now the Newburyport Boat Base on Merrimack Street, there was a 6C permit that happened directly across the street. There was a historic copper beech that they built a deck around And try as we might, everyone made such effort to try to preserve that tree. Within 5 years, it was dead. Within 5 years and 1 month, it was dead with no remnant that had ever existed. And, you know, we have to kind of live in an evolving world, so I get that. Trees don't live forever. Things have to grow and change, and there's lots of gives and takes. But that was an example where we thought we were doing the right thing at the time and it ended up being very much the wrong thing. I would hate to see, I'm very moved by an effort by the applicant to try to find a place that works without just, you know, telling ourselves, or perhaps me just telling myself that we really want to will that tree to survive. The better placement from our code standpoint of a pool that by right could exist elsewhere and the worst elsewhere. So I can find myself in support of this, though I haven't really run through the criteria in my mind yet. But let me ask the question. Then I know Mr. Swanton had a piece of a deliberation. I didn't want to short circuit, but this is just a hypothetical. Is there any appetite on behalf of the applicants to, I don't know, take a sharper pencil or revisit to the creative effort to try to re-massage this? And if the answer is no, that's fine. I just want to, perhaps for my own sake, as well as ours, just hear myself ask that question before we proceed further down that hall of locked doors. You know, I want to make sure that we haven't missed an opportunity to revisit.
So we've spent 6 months to a
I'm sure.
year.
Yeah.
Trying to get it where we are. Obviously I want to hear what the board has to say.
Yeah, of course.
But there's been a lot of effort to get where we are.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I very easily can understand that. This wasn't your first steps. This is the fine benefit of, I'm sure, a lot of creative work by many people. But I just appreciate the answer to that question. And Mr. Swanton.
Yeah, I sort of resonated with the comments I heard from Mr. Hardy. I realize you showed us a by right example, but I don't know if you realize that a by right example, the pool grew from 28 feet to 32 feet. It got bigger. And it was put in about the worst place you could put it, as far as the trees are concerned. I would agree with, and Mr. Harding said, why didn't you consider rotating it and having it as far from the tree as possible? That's the part I don't understand. So to me, this doesn't rise to the level of a variance without seeing that alternative. Jared said it longer and more eloquent. To me, that's just, so I see that alternative and why you can't do it. And why a variance is needed to do it. That's right.
So, Attorney Mead, just without really knowing the hearts and minds of other voting members, mathematically, it appears there's quite a bit of gravity against this proposal as is.
So I think that first I'd like to know if the board can indulge my client in making a comment, even though you've closed public comment. That'd be okay.
Of course, yeah, I'm happy to do that, sir.
Appreciate everyone's comments here, both for and against. We have spent a good year looking at alternative options so that we can have the pool that we're able to have. And we've looked at turning that pool around, and it's not a large yard at all. And if you've spent any time around that property, you will see that the location where that pool is currently is the most appealing for hopefully the health of that tree. And it is not our intention to cut that tree down. We've lived in this house for almost 20 years. Love this tree. Kids have grown up, playing in and around the tree, and just think, if you put yourself in our shoes, you would see that we have exhausted that's so far. It's not a large pool. It's an average size pool that we're looking to install there. But without the variance, the pool is still going to go there. we want the pool for our health benefits. And it's, without the variance, it's going to be a lot closer to that tree, and unfortunately, it's gonna have a major impact on the root system and the life of that tree. I think that's the most important aspect here. We should really be thinking about, not do we change the dimensions of that pool, 80 degrees, 180 degrees, and it's all going to that's what. True. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Further deliberations?
I just have one observation. I mean, this point is a critical one for me. And I really feel there's been a rigorous alternatives analysis presented to us this evening. There's been some, I'll call it anecdotal testimony. That this is the best and only place we can do it. Tree, and I think we need a more rigorous, fact-laden presentation. I would also say, to Mr. Agarman's point, it is, if you read marriage requirements and take them at their face value, it is the high near impossible. Over, and right. However, I take the view, like one of my colleagues here, that we have to apply those very good standards in a fashion and have them solve them. I love consideration for the larger good. And in this one, we presented a very compelling. So I could right now pigeonhole that, or you've done a wonderful job doing that. Doing it. It's always difficult to do, particularly whether or not there's substantial hardship in this situation by if you were to deny the swimming pool. Most of us would swim on it. But nevertheless, I would encourage you to provide rigorous alternative analysis to really drill down on the point. I think that may carry the day with the number of votes you need.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. If I might, without cutting off, I didn't want to cut you off. Attorney Mead, hearing Mr. Bennett's comment, if you'll indulge me for a moment, members of the board, with respect to Mr. Bennett's comment, is there an additional level of information and data which, if presented, you would find to be valuable in a favorable way with respect to the application of the criteria? And the reason I ask is I think it's fair game with respect to asking an applicant to step back and perhaps continue to spend money in an effort. If there is no hope, there's no shame in saying so, and it's, no one's married to that commentary this evening by any means, but I think times like this, it's worthy of us to try to at least give an applicant the idea, a sense of whether additional information would help refine one's decision-making. So I guess I put that to you. Yes.
Yeah, I haven't spoken yet, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay.
Sure, sir.
I think with respect to tonight, I am a lot closer to Larry tonight than the other members of the board, so I think kind of riffing off what you just said, fair information to have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyle. Sorry I didn't mean to overlook hearing from you. Yes, Mr. Gibson, and then Mr. Ryan.
I was just wondering if we end up continuing this, I mean, this is a pretty small piece of property. This is a pretty small. Obviously a pretty big tree next to it. Would going out and walking this property make a difference? Like, I don't know, it's a corner lot, but it goes down, there's a lot going on here in a very small place. I just don't know if seeing it for real would make people feel different about I perceive as the right thing to do, but I might be wrong. My right might be wrong.
I'll be interested to, I'll answer for myself and then, of course, hear from everyone, but not necessarily for me. I feel like I know this property from having walked it very close in. Many years ago, I was actually inside of it long before the current owners were there, but that said, I've got a pretty good feel. How about other members of the board? But thank you, Larry. That's great. It's a great suggestion.
I don't particularly need to, I mean, I'd just like to see a better alternative that wasn't a variance and understand from a tree guy how that's gonna hurt the tree. That's what to me, it's all about the tree, we're missing the arborist.
So a deeper dive.
Yeah, so I hear the board, and what I would ask is a continuance to the 26th, because I'm booked in 2 weeks. So if we could have a continuance to the 26th, and we'll bring back that additional information more specific to the location and or some of the other comments received.
Through the chair. Encourage the applicant to really document why you can't rotate it 90 degrees. I heard the owner say, look at it, we haven't, as Greg said, we don't have any substantial evidence of why you can't rotate, we just have certain anecdotes. So I think that would win over many of them.
I agree with this one.
Could you pull it one way and pull it another way and kind of shift the dimensions, but not the overall square footage?
Yeah, I mean, putting into the record the basis, the granular basis by which this board could make its findings and anchor its findings it goes a long way toward the board being able to make and anchor findings.
Right.
So, I know I don't need to say that out loud, but if that's something that is willing to do as well, that's important.
Well, obviously, I did that before, but I understand that folks would like it more specific as to this. So, right. Yes, the answer is yes.
So the applicant's request to continue to the 26th of May. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Swanton. Seconded by Mr. Delisle on the applicant's request to continue to May 26th. Calling the roll, Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle. Yes. Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Hageman. Yes. Mr. Ginta.
Yeah.
Mr. Harding.
Yeah.
I vote yes. That is 7 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Although we only needed 5, the matter is continued. Thank you all for the presentation. We look forward to seeing you in 4 weeks. Moving to our next application. This is the application of the Jumper Group LLC, care of attorney Lisa Mead Tellerman and Costa LLC for the property at 20 Pine Street. This too is a continuation from an application on March 24th, 2026. The application consists of 2 parts. One is a special permit to demolish over 25% of walls within the DCOD, which is the Demolition Control Overlay District. The second is a special permit for nonconformities to construct an addition of over 500 square feet, a non-conforming lot that extends the non-conforming side yard setback. Attorney Mead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Mead, me telling across 30 Green Street on behalf of the applicant. Blake is with me this evening, and Matt Langis and Scott Brown from Scott Brown. Also, if you go to the first slide. Let me just say right up front, which many of you probably already read, while we propose to remove 58.29% of the exterior walls, of that amount, 42.39% is of the later added 1980s addition, and only 15.9% is of the original historic structure. So I just want to throw that out for everybody ruminates on that for a little bit. Been to the Historic Commission, which approved the removal of the accessory structures in the rear of the property. Well, there were 2, there was only 1 under their purview. They approved that removal of that. And they noted support for the overall project, particularly given the setback of the proposed addition and garage, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, which allows the original structure to be more prominent on Pine Street. The property is pre-existing non-conforming for lot area. primary front yard setback and right side setback. I just want to make a note that every one of my applications this evening is a corner lot. Just realizing that. The structure and the property will continue to have the following non-conforming dimensional requirements. So the R2 district requires a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. The property has 6,731. The primary front yard setback is 3.9, where 25 feet is required. The right side setback is 6.5, where 10 feet is required. The right side setback will be extended along the right property line. That's our extension under non-conformity. The rear setback will be improved with the removal of the accessory structure. We go to the existing primary structure was constructed in around 1881 to 1888, according to the title, 1870, according to the district data sheets, where it's classified as contributory, and 1870, according to the assessor's records. Structure does not appear on the 1872 City of Newburyport map. Therefore, it does appear that the later 1881 to 1888 dates are correct. We go to the next slide. So here's the 1872 City of Newburyport map. You see Pine Street's like right in the middle of that plan. I don't know if you can kind of run your cursor down it. And this house doesn't yet exist on the next slide, please. And here's the 1914 Sanborn map, and now you do see the house on this plan. You see the original form. Next slide, please. And then the 1924 assessor's map. Again, it's the same form of the house on the corner of next slide, please. Here are the photographs of the current existing conditions. This is from Beacon Street, and you can see that 1980s addition that's along the side. And again, this is from Pine Street, kind of the corner of Pine and Beacon. And you can see the addition. This is the front of the house on Pine Street. And again, you can see the addition on the right. And here's a shot looking towards Beacon or to the east. And you can see the addition on the rear. That will be that plane will be changed in the proposed conditions. That rear addition. So the proposal is to remove the later added additions on the project. As I said earlier, the applicant proposes to remove 58.29% of the exterior walls. Of that amount, 42.39% are these later added additions. As a result, only 15.9% of the original historic structure will be removed. Given the proposed location of the garage in addition, the proposal does not take away from the relative structure in the context of where it's located. And the Historic Commission actually had a bit of a discussion about that too and agreed. The applicant will be adding 1,251 square feet of living area in accordance with section 9B. You could So here's the site plan, and you can see the original form of the structure in kind of the peach at the top with the dash lines. And then you'll see the additions that are being removed. And then towards the back, there's an addition being added at the back that then connects to the garage. I think this is important before you go into the line drawings when Matt or Scott come up to go over them. You can see how far back from Pine Street that addition sits so that it doesn't interfere with the main view of the house on Pine Street. And this was noted by the Historic Commission in their report to the board. And if you go to the next slide. And that would move to Matt.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Langes, Scott Brown Architects, 48 Market Street for the record. Caitlin, if you don't mind going back to just one more time. So, the goal of this project really was to increase the legibility of the original structure by reversing these 1980s additions, but also at the same time incorporating an addition that sort of stems from some of the character of the existing house, but still stays. So looking at the site plan, the proposed sort of, if you're talking about plan list, the existing footprint extends about 9.5 feet towards the rear property line, so towards existing sheds. The connector is links the main house to the garage, which, you know, allows the structure to sort of remain dominant on the site, at least the main box dominant. And then also part of the work, the existing shed and barn are supposed to be removed. Both of those structures are in really poor condition. They have compromised framing and no real foundation. So we did explore earlier to incorporate them, but even the methods of how we would incorporate them, significant amount of work. We had a structural engineer take a look at as well. Kind of came to the same conclusion that lifting, raising, trying to underpin is just not a feasible option. Next. So here's the front elevations. Today the house reads sort of as like a layered condition additions, where these 1980s tacked on sort of first floor additions disrupt the corner, most of the sides, and also the rear of the original structure. So our proposal is to sort of reorganize the massing so you know, the house reads more coherent, intentional, prominent corner. So really that approach involves a number of things, but removal of those elements, restoration of the character defining elements, which we believe to be 202 windows, additional 4-inch clapboard siding, reconstructed dormer with a steeper, more pitch, the red dotted line on the proposed elevation on the bottom, sort of shows the existing versus proposed overlaid on top of each other, and then also part of the, you know, restoration and shifting this dormer is to decrease it in width and push it further back from Pine Street. We didn't really need a lot of that space, so we took it as an opportunity to decrease it and push it closer towards the garage. Next slide. So here you can see the extension of the main structure and the removal of that low slope roof, the existing is being held. In response to the Historic Commission feedback, the addition, we made an adjustment to the addition and stepped it back from the existing structure, which resulted in a 6-inch decrease in height. We had a previous decrease in height, it just kind of aligned with the opposite direction, but felt that the feedback from the Historic Commission made a lot of sense and allowed us an opportunity to show what, how the existing and proposed structures interact with each other and allowing the original structure to remain. This view, though, is different. This view is a bit deceiving. This is sort of where you can see that 6-inch step back, step back and siding, 6-inch step in the height. But it is a bit deceiving. The fence is, you know, about 6.5 feet away. There's also a large tree along that property line. I think you can see it in one of the existing photos from that street. So a little deceiving, but I still think it's important regardless. Next slide, please. So these are the rear additions. You can see the shallow first floor additions, how they round the back, the existing, the rear and the right side. The gable steps back, you know, with this proposal on the bottom, which I think creates, you know, a small but important shift to, you know, highlight what is new versus existing. Next slide. So this was the first DCOD calculation sheet that we did, and we thought it was important to sort of break that down in a bit more detail. You go to the next slide, please. So when you hear 58.29%, it's at face value, it feels very significant and a big number, but I think it's sort of critical to understand that a large portion of that number is driven mainly by the removal of these non-historic additions. So the green sort of colors, the historic walls that are being removed. And you can see that, you know, it's largely on the front right and left sides between 4 square feet, 70 square feet. The non-historic wall removal, which is in red, is the significant square footage that we're moving, and the moving the existing walls to remain. So the majority of the work that we're moving, or that's the intent really, is to remove that non-historic material. And, you know, in our opinion, is a pretty critical. So, I think is a breakdown that we wanted to share, and we thought was to get across to the board in an appropriate way. Next slide, please. In a similar fashion, a lot of the drawings and you know, 2D elevations that I think we present a lot of times don't read the way that they appear to be in reality. So we had a couple of renderings put together and show a number of things. One being the relationship of the garage to the street and how it's sort of in nature and pushed back. Also gives us an opportunity to highlight the corner as you're coming down Pine Street. And then as you sort of take a right on Beacon, Caitlin, if you can go to the next one. I think this view is where most often, you know, people would sort of be coming from. So the two main axes we wanted to look at, the upward, again, it's a corner lot, so both sides are kind of prominent, but the garage is smaller in height, it's pushed back a lot from the street. We spent a fair amount of time making sure those additions that we felt were not really appropriate historically or even functionally with the original box are gone, and it sort of brings back some of that original character. And to also show, in addition, that not only reads secondary massing, but a scale that fits comfortably within the neighborhood. This is sort of a little bit of an undersized two-car garage, so we were sensitive about trying to make it, you know, as tight as we could. But overall, I mean, the project really is sort of, you know, three main things: removing those historic elements, the non-historic elements, sorry, restoring the original structure, and then introducing an addition that would be contextually appropriate. I think, you know, in my opinion, and the reason why we're really excited about this project is that we feel like it reflects how historic homes sort of evolve over time, which in my mind allows an opportunity for changes that preserve their character, but also allow them to be open enough for a family to live in them. Happy to answer any questions, but for the meantime, turn them to the attorney.
Good, the next slide. Thank you, Matt. So as the board knows, the board has to consider this. We're looking for two different permits: special permit under the DCOD and a special permit for nonconformities. The special permit under the DCOD requires the board to make a couple of findings. Here, as we noted earlier, only 15.9% of the original structure is being removed. The bulk of the exterior wall removal is the 1980s, which in fact hides the original form of the home. And we think that the board can find that this later added addition or additions, that given how they impact the form of the original home, that they have no substantial remaining value to the historic structure. The removal of these areas account for, as I said, 42.39% of the overall demolition of the exterior. And as to the historical significance of this structure, the additions have no historic significance. On the other hand, the main form of the home is being retained. This proposal with one change was favorably looked upon by the Historic Commission, and that's the change that Matt noted. They requested differentiation on that rear addition, which was provided. The commission commented that it appreciated the setback of the garage, which allows for the original house structure to be prominent on Pine Street. And then there's the general special permit criteria for the demolition overlay district that we're, excuse me, the DCOD that we're required to go through. I did provide all of those explanations, items 1 to 9. And in regards use, it continues to be a single family home. Would the board like me to go through each one of those special permit criteria, or is my submission sufficient?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the submission. Does anyone else have any difference of opinion? Great. We'll go ahead.
The special permit for nonconformities. Section 9 requires that the applicant seek a special permit for nonconformities. We are extending the right side setback, and we are increasing the livable square footage by 1,251 square feet. Here, the board can grant that special permit if, one, it finds that there are no new nonconformities being created, and the board can certainly so find, we're not making any new ones. And the next is that the board can grant that special permit where the applicant can show that the proposed changes will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming structure or use. And they can take into consideration the size, mass, and scale, etc. So here, the proposed extension on the right side setback follows the same line as the existing non-conformity. The home will be continue to be at 25.7 feet from the rear lot line. However, rear yard will open up because of the removal of those two accessory structures. So we meet that rear yard setback, but it will actually have more open feeling in the back. The form of the structure will be returned to the original architectural style. The proposed attached garage is set back from Pine Street approximately 20 feet, and therefore does not overwhelm the street or the historic structure. And it's set back from Beacon Street over 25 feet. Obviously, it meets the setback requirements, but more importantly, it leaves that corner open and still allows the obvious view that Matt noted of that house. Also, as can be shown on the My Maps, if you go to the next slide, the Pine Street includes an eclectic mix of homes, lot shapes and sizes. And you just hold right there for a second. The Beacon Avenue, on the other hand, has more regular shaped lots. So you can go to the next slide, Caitlin. So you can see in the blue is the outline of the property at hand. I'll note across the street is a multifamily development. And then you can see some of the houses we're going to talk about. The proposed structure will include 2,612 square feet of living area. 24 Beacon Avenue next door includes 3,256 square feet. 18 Pine Street, which is a two-family building, but still from a massing point of view, includes 2,713 square feet. 14 Pine Street includes 2,208 square feet. 25 Beacon across the street includes 2,301 square feet. And 23 Beacon includes 988 square feet. It's a little cave. And as I noted earlier, directly across Pine Street is the multifamily development. So as you can see, the project will not be, this proposed structure will not be out of line with regards to the size of the proposed structure or the neighborhood. If you go to the next slide. So here are some shots of different properties. Here's 18 Pine Street, which is right next door. Next slide. And 14 Pine Street. Next slide. It's much taller house. Obviously. 8 Pine Street further down. Next slide, please. 11 Pine, these are multifamily homes across the street. Next slide, please. And we believe that the board can find that the proposal is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, that Matt has taken great care to make sure that the historic structure is pride on this lot, and that the proposed addition meets the Secretary of the Interior standards set apart from the original structure and does not take away from the original structure, nor is it an exact replica of the original structure. I will also say to the board, we've provided 5 letters of support from 19 Beacon Avenue, 8 Pine Street, 18 Pine Street, 23 Beacon Avenue, and 24 Beacon Avenue. And with that, we have to take it.
Thank you, Attorney Mead. Closing presentation, we'll go to public comment. Anyone in the room wish to speak in connection with the application? Just kindly raise your hand and we will hear from you. Seeing no hands. I do not see any hands online unless I'm mistaken. Do not see anyone on. Anyone else in the room? Final call. I'll close public comment and go to questions from the board. Mr. Ackman.
So the
the shed in the back that's gonna be demolished, that you went through demo delivery.
Yes, we did. They approved the demo. I think Matt was just giving you back.
And then, you had a letter in here from March where I think in response to comments from neighbors, there was a middle second floor window removed on the rear elevation, but I couldn't compare that drawing. I can't see what changed from the temporary drawings.
So it might have been removed at that point. You might go to the rear elevation. So, I mean, in general, I think, I know, the fantastic job of involving a lot of neighbors and having their, support projects. So what we sort of came to, what we realized is that there was a fair amount of glass on the backside here. So the two windows are, I think, one of the question was actually in that connector between the main house and the garage. It's in a closet. It's in sort of like a walk-in closet. So it's not.
So the second floor.
Exactly.
There used to be a window.
Where
Was
there's
it two?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was brought up as a concern of the neighbor, like, is there any way
Yeah.
that we can sort of decrease this? So that was in response.
Crystal clear. I got it. Further, sorry, one more, basement. So, there's no living area in the basement. I mean, sometimes on these small lots, you can dig out the basement and get more space. That saw there were some windows going in, but I'm only alerted to this because we have another case where people are parking in the basement. What's going on in the basement?
So part of the existing foundation, is not really at a great height. So,
Yeah.
the goal would be to use the basement for something. We would, plan to use like a deep rapport and try to make as much of the new portion of the house sort of useful as possible. I mean, you always need room for like mechanical space and things that you don't want to have a valuable first and second floor. So, we haven't really developed a solid plan for the basement, but the goal is to use it in some fashion or another.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Other questions? Yes. Sorry.
Attorney Mead, just one question. The section 28E finding that we have to make here. I'd like you to tell me how I make that finding here. That is to say, what evidence is so substantial in the record that the building contains no substantial remaining market value or reasonable use? Struggling.
So, we believe that the historic home itself has substantial value and has remaining substantial use. It's the 1980s addition on there that has no historic value. And that's the finding we're asking you to make.
Relative to this.
Correct. That's correct.
Yes. Anything else, Mr. Bennett? No. Anything further? Mr. Kinzer?
This house looks like it's on a pretty small lot. And I'm just curious, like, what was the size of the original structure? Minus the 1980s addition, and what's the size of what you're on?
So the lot is actually large, for the R2 district. And it is, hang on, I said it in the beginning.
There was a picture that showed this lot to be a little rectangle, but everything around it was big.
No, this 6,731 square feet is this lot? Yeah, that's a big lot.
All right.
So, I don't know if you want to go to the Sanborn map, that's probably
It may have been your, the artist drawing that made it.
Oh, it makes it look,
It
yeah,
makes it look like a very small lot right there, way that it.
it's actually one of the largest lots.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, if you go down Pine Street, you can show the my maps again, I
Yeah.
think, Caitlin.
Was just a little worried that we were putting a lot of house in a small lot.
No, we don't. There you go. So, you see the lot, it's the outlined in blue,
Yeah.
and then the lot next to it, behind is big, but then the lot, it's the corner of that lot is not. And I don't have all the lines on this, but It is not a small, it's 6,700.
In your drawing, you know,
The site plan?
yeah,
Yeah, why don't you do that?
well, the one, yeah. The rendering.
Oh, the
Thank you.
rendering. Sure.
Um. That, and there was another view of it too, where I was like, boy, that lot looks small. It at least made me think that.
Yeah, so we're 25 feet from the garage to the Beacon Street,
Okay.
right, is 25 feet.
Yeah.
And we're 20 feet-ish from the rear, something like that. 20 feet from the rear.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gotta be bigger than that.
Yeah, it's
Right.
kind of the, yeah, it's kind of,
Okay, thank you. That's
you're welcome.
Any other questions? I don't have any other that haven't already been asked. So unless there's anything further, we'll close questions. And we will go into deliberations. And again, we're deliberating the criteria for both special permits that are before us. Anyone want to start? Yes,
I'll start. Okay, there's two special permits here. One is our usual one, is potentially more detrimental. There are no new nonconformities. And as far as, massing, as far as potentially more detrimental, it is growing from 1361 to 2612 square feet, plus a two-car garage. I mean, that is a fairly substantial increase in massing. But, to me, it sort of fits a lot. There are other things in the neighborhood that are bigger. And it's, the fact that the new addition is kind of set back from the original house and set back a lot, and then 6 inches lower also. So even though it's getting close to the water for me, it's, I'm okay with that. With that special permit. That special permit is because it's demolishing more than 25%. Normally, I would have a big problem with that and ask for an engineer's report on all of it, but as I said, it's only like 14% and change that is, the historic building that's being demolished. The rest of it is stuff that was added, much more recent. So I don't have an issue with that. I mean, to me, it's, if the historic commission had flagged it, I might, but they also kind of agreed with that logic that, only 14%, not 25. And they asked for a few things which were done this with the setbacks and the height. So I think that's the way I look at that one as well. So I can support both special permits.
Very good. Further deliberations? Yes, Mr. Black.
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Swanton. I think knowing that you're talking about only a 14% reduction in the historical of the home and the benefits being from the later added additions, I think that's an important factor in getting towards that finding for me. And I think with respect to the special permit for non-conformities, that works for me also. I think it's nice. It's tasteful and fits well on the lot. Also, kudos on the oak chimney. I think that's pretty good. That saved a little some discussion. So yeah, I can support.
Very good. Thank you. Further deliberations?
Concur with Mr. Black.
I'll go a little deeper, but the bottom line is with the project. So on the DCOD, we've already, Greg asked and answered, it was answered how we can make the finding. We don't need to do that together. So that makes sense. I do want to note for the record, there are other properties in the DCOD where accessory buildings are mentioned in the 1984 inventory. This is not one. So, for example, in 87 High Street, which came before you a couple of years ago, I live nearby. I know about that one. Parents' house was specifically noted, so that was subject to DCOD protections, but for the benefit of the public, the shed that went through demo delay is not. It went through demo delay, not set.
On the nonconformities, this takes a little work with this neighborhood. I had to go back and look at it again. I hadn't really spent any time there in days. And, it's weird because it originally really was an industrial area. Lots of shape. So behind the Shepherd family, for example, on 14, there used to be a hothouses for farms. And of course, the playground was. So this is a very different area. And I raised that because it had to do with what I saw with the existing driveway. It was pretty wide. We had another project where we didn't want too much driveway and too much curb cut. This one's fine in context. It's fine. Also, the bulk generally I think is fine. There are large multifamily buildings across the street. I don't think, and I do want to give kudos that the board, at least most of us, I think all of us appreciate when an architect makes the effort, to do some architecture. So that's great. The last thing though is the renderings. This rendering is the one that is most important to me, and I. The other rendering, A7, I don't think, when you go back on, I don't think actually is helpful. It really doesn't match drawing A1. So I just want to go to A1 and I want to ask a question. It's not a deal breaker. Yeah, A1, and if you could zoom in on the post elevation. So that's the actual elevation, and as Ken said, there's a big garage. It's not, you're essentially doubling the size of the mass. In context, I just wonder if you could possibly the connector, although it's set back 20 feet, and that's great. So this is misleading because there's a planar difference. Does that roof have to be quite so high? And the reason I asked is there's Federal Street support private citizens. It was similar kind of addition to an historic building, and I think personally I made a mistake. I should have asked the developer. Is there a possibility of lowering that roof just so it's noticeable? Connector? The connector between the garage and the historic house.
So, if I could just give you that answer. The ridge on that connector is 1.5 feet lower than the existing ridge.
No, I know. I know. And there was a similar gesture made on this Federal Street project. It's just, I'm just asking if you can squeeze any more without ruining your plan. Because I think it would, in the long run, it would go next. Yeah, I can pretty clearly say that, yeah, it's not. We haven't had detailed yet, but I'll be happy to produce that, 6 inches or. All right, so yes, no, that'd be great with that. Very good. Anything further?
I concur with my colleagues. I think I can certainly feel that I can support both of these applications as well, for all of the reasons that my colleagues have stated. So any further deliberations before we close? Seeing none, I'll close deliberations. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion because I have to do the condition. Let me just see what we're doing about trees. Trees?
Sidewalk.
I would make a motion, I guess I'll do 2 motions. A motion to approve the EPOD special permit.
Thank you, Mr. Igerman, and seconded by Mr. Bennett. We have a motion made and seconded. There are no conditions. Calling the roll on the motion for a special permit, Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Delotte. Yes. Mr. Bennett.
Yeah.
Mr. Igerman.
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it, motion carries.
And then a motion to approve the special permit for nonconformities on 2 conditions. First, that the ridge line on the connector between the new garage and the historic building be lowered by an additional 6 inches. And that the applicant work with the Department of Public Services to repair or update the sidewalk that's
necessary.
Very good. Do we have we have a motion made with two conditions as stated. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Bennett. A motion made by Mr. Ackerman with two conditions, seconded by Mr. Bennett. Calling the roll, Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle.
Yep.
Mr. Bennett.
Yeah.
Mr. Ackerman. Yes. Well, yes, 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. And the motion with two conditions carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sideways.
Good. Okay, moving to our next application. This is the application of JSJO Realty LLC, care of Attorney Lisa Mead, Power LLC. The application property address of 65 Brownfield Street. The applicant seeks all necessary permits, permissions, and approvals for two separate elements of request. A special permit to for a greater than 25% demolition of the exterior walls within the DCOD, the Demolition Control Overlay District, and second, a special permit for properties to construct an addition of 500 square feet, greater than 500 square feet on a non-conforming single-family structure, extending the non-conforming front and rear yard setbacks. Attorney Mead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Mead, Town and Costa 30 Main Street, on behalf of JSJO Realty LLC, and Joel Willett, who's the principal of that, is here with me this evening. And the architect on the project is Eileen Graff, and she is also here. We'll be reviewing the architectural plans. Go to the next slide, please. I also want to say at the outset, we are here for a special permit under the DCOD. And like the last one, the applicant proposes to remove 30.2% of the exterior walls. However, 23.2% of that is the removal of the 1980s addition. That was a great decade, apparently. Only 7% of the original structure. So 23% of the new additions and 7% of the original structure. So Joel proposes to remove the later added addition and construct a new addition on the home opposite Bromfield Street. Joel proposes to remove the existing accessory garage, big shed kind of thing, and construct a new connected garage, thereby moving it away from the lot line to the south. So the lot line that it shares with 67, the garage is like right on the lot, almost up against the house. So we're gonna talk about that. The property is a corner lot and has two front yards. The primary front yard is Chestnut Street, which is clearly the side of the home. And the secondary front yard, which is Bromfield Street, is clearly the front of the home, but because the yardage is bigger on Chestnut Street, that's the primary front yard. The property is non-conforming for lot area, 10,000 square feet, where is required, where we have 6,139. Primary front yard setback is 5.5, where there are 25 feet is required. The secondary front yard setback is 5 feet, rather than the required 25 feet. The rear yard setback is 12.1, where 25 feet is required. That's off of the raised deck off of that right side of the house facing Bromfield. And lot coverage is 25.1%, where 25% is required. And so the applicant will be adding, it's not more than 500 square feet, by the way, it's only 375 square feet of additional living space intersection. We have been before the Historical Commission, which has issued a favorable recommendation to this board, noting that the proposed addition is subordinate to the historic structure and includes restoration of the historical elements in the structure. The proposed work will not create any new nonconformities, but will expand the following existing nonconformities. The rear yard setback currently is 12.1, and it will be reduced to 5 feet. That's because we're attaching the garage to where that deck used to be. As I said, that's currently 1.1 foot from that lot line, which is where the existing garage is. The new garage will be 5 feet away. The addition will also increase lot coverage from 25.1% to 29.5%. Further, the front yard setback, again, this is the Chestnut Street setback, which is 5.5, will be extended down Chestnut Street, but that one-story addition will move away from Chestnut Street area and actually be at 8.4, not the 5.5. When we go over the site plan, you'll see the Chestnut Street And the house don't actually sit at a 90-degree angle, so it moves away down the street. The district data sheets identify the home as being built pre-1840, while the assessors card lists the structure as a contributory resource built in 1850. Based upon the title search, the home it would likely built between 1849 and 1851 during the ownership of Nathaniel Noyes and William Bach. There is no Form B for the home. Next slide, please. So here's the 1906 Sanborn map. So at the top right corner, you see the house, at the corner of Chestnut and Romney. And then in 1914, pretty much the same form, the corner of Chestnut and Bromfield. And the next slide, please. And the 1924 assessor's map, there's a corner at the top they did cut out of this particular area, and there you go. So you can see that garage is gone. The earlier garage is gone, and so there was one built later on. But in 1924, there it is at Chestnut and Bromfield Street. Next slide, please. And here are photographs of the house today. So you can see that garage on the right-hand side, how close it is to Suffolk Holborn House. And that's what we're trying to improve as part of this. Basically, the front elevation is not going to change. It's going to be improved in a number of respects related to the windows and whatnot, but it's not going to change. Next slide, please. Here's a view looking towards the back. You'll see that deck, which is where that setback is to that rear yard right now. That area will be coming off. That's attached to this. And here is a view looking south on Bromfield Street, on almost at the next. And here's the view in the back of Chestnut Street. So you can see this addition that was put on. It's pretty fairly large addition, one-story addition in the back. That's all coming. And you can see the garage on the right-hand side and how close it is to the house. Next slide. So the applicant proposes to renovate the existing structure, as I indicated, by removing the 1980s addition and constructing the new addition. The removal will include 30.2% of the exterior walls. However, 23.2% of that removal is attributed to the demolition of the 1980s addition. And as a result, only 7% of the original structure will be removed. The ridge of the new two-story roof will sit 2.6 feet below the ridge of the original structure, which you're going to see shortly from my next slide. So here is the site plan. So at the bottom, we have Bromfield Street. On the left-hand side, we have Chestnut Street. You can just blow that up. This is a good sized lot on Bromfield Street. So you can see the area that is going to be removed in the back, which is kind of in the peach lines. Eileen will go over that a little bit more. You can see on the hash that's the dotted lines is the area to be removed, I guess I should say. And then you can see the removal of the garage and how the new garage is pushed over and attached to the house. And you can see how the existing entry that I pointed out earlier in those dashed lines, that goes away. And that new addition is stepped back away from the existing structure. And the Historic Commission really liked that particular element to keep that separate there. So with that, go to the next slide, please. I'll turn it over to Eileen.
Eileen Graff with Atala Architects. Actually, I'll say Graff Architects has done a rebranding. So I'm seeing this is from still has the Graff Architect. So sorry. So again, this is the demolition calculation sheet and touching on the fact that as Lisa had mentioned, of that 30%, only 7% of it is actually of the historic. Really, as mentioned, it's that 80s addition that we're removing and adding back to what we think is an improvement. So next slide, please. So, beginning with the left side of the sheet, which is showing the existing above and the proposed below. Really, what I'd like to say about this structure is that there is, the way it sits on the property, it sort of has this bit of a pedestal, if you will. There's a mound or a retention wall that lets it sit, what I like to refer to as sort of as an honest home here. And what proposal is and what Joel's proposing is really to restore this pure form and bring back, restore the natural materials, the clapboards, the trim that's on there, and really sort of let it shine again. Replacing the existing windows, there's an assortment of replacement windows on it. And so we're gonna come back with introduce some sort of high quality Marvin windows. The 2/1s are what you're seeing. There's this sort of asymmetrical aspect with this bay that's existing and on the right side, first floor there. And that too could use some attention to the brick foundation levels, repointing in that area, cleaning up the panels that are down below. To the right of that, you're going to see this new connection from I'll call it the mudroom addition is now, as you can see, has a second level above it. It is stepped back further than the original. And then to the right of that is the one-car garage. So keeping it compact has always been part of the goals. And you can see that the site plan will go back to that in order to sort of reinforce that, in that much of our addition is really sitting where everything was sitting prior. So the right side bottom corner drawing is showing the side view. This is the side where we have moved away from the property line from 1.1 to 5 feet now to the front left corner. If you're looking at the bottom drawing of the garage, and actually as you move deeper into the property, the back side of the garage is even further than 5 feet. And so it moves further down deeper into the property. Behind that, you can see that transom window, and that's that second story piece above the mudroom. And yet behind that is the 2-story piece, placing a gable over what conceptually was the previous addition, but this is all in new construction. And next slide, please. And here we can see some of the changes on the rear, a little cleaner to describe the forms that are added. So the bottom left drawing, if I can work from the right side of that drawing, with that side is the Chestnut Street end. And so from moving in from that corner, it was important to stay sort of away from the Chestnut Street side and sort of just have a 1-story sort of stepping up to the 2-story piece, sort of to minimize that addition. That 2-story piece, then you can see that gable dying into the original. So we're removing the existing skylights that are up on the roof. And that new gable is actually sitting 2.6 feet lower than the existing ridge with that new mudroom connector with that shed roof attaching to it and then to its left garage. You'll also see the fencing going in there and the dotted lines of this suggested stair that's going down to the basement. This is to replace, there's an existing bulkhead where the right side 1-story addition is going. So this is to replace that access to the basement. And with the single car garage, it was really an opportunity to provide access to the basement for storage and an easier way to get down than a bulkhead, bikes or patio furniture, etc. It was just trying to be more practical in that sense, while also providing opportunity for light. So that's why to the lower level. So that's why we created an external stair. And then the last elevation is the Chestnut Street elevation. Here you can see that 1-story piece again, sort of mediating to the 2-story piece behind. Again, the windows are 2/1s. We will continue with cedar clapboards on all the new additions, and then the roof will be architectural shingles as well. The chimneys, to note, those are to be removed and rebuilt in a brick veneer to replicate what exists today. And the next slide, please. So here we have renderings traveling around the building. So this is from the Bromfield side. You can note the side mudroom addition there. One thing to note, there is a mistake in the rendering that there is a valley between the gable of the one-story garage and its connection to the mudroom. Next slide, please. And I feel like this corner is a good example of how the addition is starting to stay compact to the original massing of the structure, but yet not overwhelming it. Again, stepping back in its form and its location and plan, so as the original structure can still sit prominent and proud on its corner. Again, like I was saying, there's sort of this elevated aspect, this pedestal aspect on this property that it continues to do so in this location. The next slide from the rear. And here's the rear showing that two-story gable addition. Again, it's matching the same pitch as the existing house. So there's the replicate of that and its detailing and wrapping around it. And then it's a relatively large lot for this area of town. So this, by keeping everything compact, it preserves space for the use of the property. The next slide. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. And so, again, we'll go through the DCOD criteria. Here, only 7% of the original structure is being removed. Bulk of the exterior wall being removed is the 1980s addition. We believe the board can find as to the later added additions, given how it impacts the form of the original home, it has no substantial remaining value, and the addition introduces a separate mass that disrupts the overall composition of the building. This is clearly later added, not as well constructed one-story addition, and removal of this area accounts for 23.2% of the total removal of the exterior walls. As the historic significance of the structure, the addition itself has no historic significance. On the other hand, the main form of the home is being retained, which is where the historic significance of this structure exists. Again, the Historic Commission noted that the bulk of the demolition was the 1980s addition, which was non-contributing. And further, they found that the overall proposed renovations and additions are unlikely to adversely affect the historic character of the building or the block. And then I also have to go through the general special permit criteria, which if the board is amenable, I put that all on the record. It continues to be a single family home, and so we meet all the criteria. If acceptable to the board, I won't go through each one of those.
Anyone have an objection to just referring to what is on record with respect? Good.
So then we'll move on to the special permit criteria for nonconformities. As the board knows, there are two criteria to be met. One, that there is no new nonconformities, and as I noted, there are no new nonconformities. We have increased the non-conforming lot coverage by about 4%, I think I said, and we have extended the setback along Chestnut Street, which is currently 5.5, but the extension is actually only to 8.3, so it's not as intense. As to the second criteria, we believe the board can find that the proposed renovations are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. As we know, the addition extends along Chestnut Street to the south towards the rear of the home, and as Eileen showed, it's very compact and as subservient to the existing structure. The view from both Bromfield and Chestnut are unencumbered by the addition, as you can see from that corner rendering. The attached garage will bring the rear yard setback from 12.1 to 5 feet. However, the current setback is 1.1 feet with that existing garage, so that's actually improved. The reality, once the existing garage is removed, the placement of the newly constructed garage will actually create more space between that and the adjoining structure at 67. The architect, Eileen, has designed the new addition and garage to be set back from the original structure in order to clearly differentiate between the new construction and the historic building. It's also shorter in height, as she described, 2.6 feet lower in the ridge. And as can be seen on my maps, Bromfield Street features an eclectic mix of homes, lot configurations, and lot sizes. Our proposed structure will include a total of 2,398 square feet, of which the 325 odd square feet are the new square feet. If you go to the next slide, please. So just for a comparison, the directly adjacent to the property on Bromfield Street at 70 Bromfield Street includes 3,351 square feet. The applicant's abutting neighbors to the south at 67 includes 2,808 square feet. 69 Bromfield includes 3,633 square feet. 82 Bromfield includes 2,078 square feet. The adjacent property at 1 Chestnut includes 1,260 square feet. And directly across from Chestnut at 63 Bromfield includes 1,972 square feet. So the proposed structure is certainly consistent and not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood from a size point of view, if you will. You go to the next slide, please. So here we have, as you can see, as Eileen described to you, also is a very large lot on the Chestnut and Bromfield Street. And the properties I described to you in their sizes, this property, the proposed construction is certainly within the realm of the square footage of those surrounding structures. And certainly the existing open space on this property will far exceed that which is to the neighbors, except for the lot at 67, which has a very long backyard, but it's a very narrow lot. And so next slide. So this is 67 Bromfield Street, and this is the next door neighbor. This house is larger. Next slide, please. 69 Bromfield Street, and this is the next house up, the 2 houses up towards High Street. Next. And this is 70 Bromfield Street across the street. Next slide. And 68 Bromfield, this is multifamily on the corner of Bromfield and Prospect. Next slide, please. And 63 Bromfield, this is directly across the street on Chestnut and Bromfield. Next slide. And this is 1 Chestnut, this is the smallest house that I mentioned. Next slide. And this is 6 Chestnut. And this is in the backyard. Next slide. So with that, we believe that we have shown that the board can find that the proposed renovations are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, the existing structure, or non-conforming structure, and that it is certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood as a whole. And the board can find and grant a special permit. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will tell you that we did receive a letter of support from 67 Bromfield Street. Gus and Mary, who sent in a letter.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation. Going to public comment. Wish to speak in connection with the application? Seeing no hands, do we have anyone online who wishes to speak in connection with the application? Seeing no hands online, close public comment. Questions? Any questions from the board? Seeing no questions from the board, we will close questions and go to deliberations. We're deliberating 2 requests: a special permit for nonconformities under the DCOD, and then a special permit for nonconformities for an addition greater than 500 square feet. Who does anyone wish to start things off? Mr. Schwann.
I'm happy to. This one to me is similar to the last one. And then it's the DOCD of greater than 25%, but very little that. Most of it is some of these 1980s buildings. So to me, the DOCD is not that relevant here because they're not really demoing much of the historic building. Just as in the previous one, we just listened to it 20 times. As far as the special permit for nonconformities, the two-pronged test, there are no new none. And, although it is growing from 20,048 to 2,863 square feet, it is a large house to begin with, and that addition is mostly on the back and it's consistent with other houses on the street in the immediate neighborhood. I also really do like the fact that the garage on the right side, which is currently extremely close to the property line, I think what is now going to be 5 feet, which to me is a big improvement. And it's nice that you have strong support from that abutter with a letter of support. Because that's the closest abutter to this project. So for all those reasons, I can support this. Both of them.
Thank you, Mr. Swanton, for laying out the criteria as well. Any further deliberations, Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, I think I can support this also. I do note that the lot coverage is going from 25.1% to almost 30%. So that, you know, that could be close to a new nonconformity, right? But it's not because of math. So it's close for me. It's a little bit interesting. But that being said, I do think that this project is in the same paradigm as the last project, where you have this the 1980s buildings coming off and really not doing too much violence to the story of the house. So I think I'm able to support.
Any other deliberations? I agree. I too find this very similar to the last application. And also for the same reasons that Mr. Swanton and Mr. Delisle pointed out, I too can support. Last call for any further deliberations. Closing deliberations, do we have a motion to approve on each of the two requests? And a second.
Motion to approve the DCOT special permit.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman, and seconded by Mr. Swanton. Calling the roll, Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle.
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman.
Yes.
Well, yes, it's 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have the motion carries. We have a motion on the second request for special.
Motion to approve the special permit for nonconformities on condition of sidewalk improvement as written by staff, and also consulting with the tree work. Street trees. There aren't any street trees, so this is a pretty big one. I want to check.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman, with conditions, and seconded by Mr. Swanton. The roll on the motion to approve with conditions on the second. Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle. Yes. Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman. Yes. And I vote yes, 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Both matters are approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Let's thank you folks for those in the room that were here for that. We are now going to go to our last application this evening. And that is the application of Nicole Page and Bruce Page, care of Lisa Mead, Tellerman and Costa LLC, the application for 13 Tilton Street. The applicant seeks all necessary approvals, permissions, and permits for a special permit for nonconformities to construct an addition of over 500 square feet to a primary structure with a pre-existing nonconforming lot area. Attorney Mead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lisa Mead, Costa 30 Green Street. In your report, on behalf of Nicole and Bruce Page, who are here, who have gotten a lesson in absolutely every form of relief is going to be granted tonight for the first time they've ever attended a zoning board meeting. I'm sure they're very happy that they were last on the agenda. So this is for 13 Tilton Street. You can go to the first slide, please, Caitlin. Nicole and Bruce proposed to construct an addition to the existing home and include an extension of their existing in-law for an accessory dwelling unit, as well as a single-car garage with storage over. It is of note, before I go through all of those details, that Bruce and Nicole are the third generation of their family to live in this home. Bruce acquired this home in 2000. His mom, Jane, Jane and her husband, Bruce's father Leland, obtained the property from their parents in 1964. Bruce's grandparents, Willard and Irene Evans, obtained the property in 1943. There are currently 3 generations living in this home as well. This is in the R2 district, and it is improved, as I noted, with a single-family home. The addition on which, there is an addition on which the proposed addition is proposed to be built, was built in 2000, when an in-law unit was added for then Bruce's mother, and this one will be for Nicole's mother. The current in-law is less than 300 square feet. The structure and lot are non-conforming as follows. The primary front yard Tilton is required to be 25, and it is 1.2. The secondary front yard from Clintock is required to be 25, and it is 23.5. The rear yard is required to be 25, and it is 11.4. The lot area is 8,867, where 10,000 is required. You go to the next slide. So here's a view across the street on Tilton. So this is at the front of the house. You see the 1-story addition that was added in 2000 right next to it. And then right next to that is where the proposed addition will be proposed to. Next slide, please. This is the McClintock side of the structure. Nothing is happening on this side. Next slide. This is a view closer to Tilton on McClintock. And so just to give you another angle of the house. Next. Again, this is the front of the house on Tilton. A little bit closer up than before. Next slide, please. And then this is as you were driving down Tilton away from the hospital, but you can see that 2000 addition that was added. What I want to point out from this is that the proposed addition is where that is in the same plane as that 2000 addition. So we will not be coming any closer to the front yard setback. We meet all the dimensional standards with the new addition. Next slide. And there's just a little further away on the opposite side of the street on Tilton. Next slide, please. So the idea is to convert the 1-story in-law, and part of it will be in the new addition, which will give the in-law a total of, which will become an ADU and give it a total of 528 square feet. The ADU, as I said, is proposed for Nicole's mom. The new addition will also include a single-car garage with a room and storage over it, and that room and the storage over it will be 524 square feet. The idea is to make more efficient use of the house overall and to have that storage area. As I noted just a minute ago, the new addition meets all of the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. Next slide, please. So here's the site plan. Tilton Street is at the top, and McClintock is on the right-hand side, possibly be way down on the right-hand side. But you can see the peach area, and you can see where I'm saying that the addition is going to be attached right to that 2000 addition, 1-story addition. There'll be a driveway there, and there's also parking off of McClintock. But I did include the floor plan so you can see how this is all going to work. But you can see the little bit of addition that is now going to be a bedroom, and then you have the one car garage, and above that will be the full story. But that addition does meet all of our dimensional requirements. Next slide. So here are the elevations from the architect. Again, you know, it's hard to see these one-dimensional. That's why I like to show that site plan first, so you can see how the addition is actually back. So that 1-story addition, as you know, is back from the front of the house. That's in the middle, and then the new addition is attached to that on the left. And so here is the existing conditions, and you have, can't see on the top there, but that's the front elevation on the top left. And then on the right-hand side is the McClintock elevation. And then the lower is the rear elevation. No, the side elevation, excuse me, traveling west on Tilton. And then the lower right-hand side is the rear elevation. Next slide, please. So now we have it with the addition. So the top is the rear elevation, so you can see it from the back. You can see how it attaches to the single story. And then the bottom is the elevation from the plinth, and you can see the addition in the back. Next slide, please. And here we have the front elevation on the top, and you can see how the addition attaches is the first page. And then on the lower is as you're coming down Tilton Street away from next slide, please. So I did include these floor plans just so you get an idea. So on the right is the existing home. On the right of this drawing is the existing home. And then the in-law apartment as it exists today is right there. So you can see there's the deck and then the little in-law apartment that is existing today. And so if you go to the next slide. Again, on the right of the left, you start with the left-hand drawing. On the very right is the existing structure. You see the deck into that existing, the 2000 one-story addition. And then the new addition is on the left-hand side of that drawing. And you see the new bedroom, and then you see the one part beside it. And then on the right-hand drawing, that's the second story, and you can see the storage of the second story, the entrance to that. Next slide, please. So under 9B, the board needs to make two findings. One, that there is no new nonconformities, and in this instance, not only are there no new nonconformities, but the proposed addition meets all the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. The next is that the proposed changes will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure, taking into account massing and size and style and things of that nature. First and foremost, as I said, the addition meets all the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. Next, the additional space is adding a bedroom and allowing a more comfortable, albeit still very small ADU. The other additional space is above the garage for storage. The applicants use, as I said, use their home in a more efficient manner with this new addition. The mixture of ranches and two-story colonials along Tilton Street, it makes for an eclectic neighborhood. Mean height of the proposed structure is 16 feet 10 7/8 inches, so it's still quite modest. The existing living area of the structure is 1,559 square feet, with the additional 126 feet in the new ADU. And then you have an additional 524, which now classifies because it's heated, a storage space above the garage, would bring the total living area to 2,209 square feet. As compared to the surrounding properties, the proposed structure will neither be the largest nor the smallest in the neighborhood. From a massing point of view, again, there are many two-style homes along Tilton, certainly much larger homes in the rear on Sylvester. Proposed home will be very modest at just under 17 feet in height. And compared to the other homes in the street, certainly it will not be substantially more detrimental. Indeed, the lot coverage on Tilton Street ranges from 11.8% at 16 to 18 Tilton to 33% at 11 Tilton. And the proposed lot coverage for this property is 24.9%. So we meet the lot coverage requirements. I did show a table so that you could see that, in fact, there are a number of lots that have greater massing and have greater lot coverage than what we're proposing in the neighborhood. So we certainly are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, but in fact, rather in line with what exists in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So here's Tilton. And those are all the homes that we used in the comparison. Our home is at the top on the left in the blue outline. You can see it's a rather large lot. Well, it's large like the one across the street as well. But so that's Tilton Street. Next slide, please. And here's a view of the streetscape of Tilton Street. This is starting down Tilton with your back to the hospital. Next slide. And the purpose of these slides were to show you, the sizes of the homes, but more importantly, the eclectic mixture of the style of homes on Tilton Street. Next slide, please. And you can see some splits, and you've got some extended splits. Next slide, please. You've got some extended capes. Next slide, please. And further down the street, as you're moving down, next slide, please. And another two-story house on Tilton, not this one. Next slide, please. Again, moving down Tilton. Next slide, please. So we believe that the board can find that proposed addition to the home is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It adds a total of 750 square feet, of which 524 is the storage space above the garage. The connected, we're adding 124 square feet to the existing 390 square foot in-law suite to make an ADU. And we believe that given the comparison to the properties in the neighborhood, the density as they exist in the neighborhood, is certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. I have also provided 7 letters of support from all the folks who live around the property at 13 Tilton Street, around the pages, and I have provided those. We've already filed those with the board. So if you have any questions, I'm happy.
Thank you, Attorney. And in our small room, anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing no hands, and again, no one online, public comment, any questions from the board? Seeing no questions from my colleagues, I'll close questions from the board. We'll go right into deliberations. Deliberating again the special permit criteria. Does anyone wish to start?
I can start. It's been a long night, so I'll go. Could you show the existing photograph? So it's the view from, there's another one taken from part of the way it shows.
It's like one of the first.
Okay. So I went to the site again. Every neighborhood in Newburyport is different. This is sort of an enclave neighborhood by Anna Jakes. It's really a special place. It's its own thing. In the context, this is the, I the view, and I compared it to other buildings around. Overall, the addition of 750 square feet, whether it's storage or not, by the way, doesn't matter to me. That's fine. Next, if you go to the site plan, showing the coverage, they have, long story short, I think that it's made their case on the coverage. So if you zoom in on that, the change is, to me, not substantially more detrimental. But zoom in on the shaded site. Yeah. Okay, so, but where I have worry, and in good conscience, I want to push you, I think it is detrimental, is elevation A-2.0. I'll show you what I mean. And, this is not the same situation exactly at this bottom view, especially the side view. So it's not the same situation. Every lot is different. Neighborhood is different. But the existing outline, what is here is this is the existing outline. Okay, this entire second story, which is for storage. Again, I want to be clear. I don't care if it's storage or part of the ADU. It doesn't matter. To get to the point, it's this mass here is a bridge too far. I really do think, in my conscience, in this neighborhood, that's too much mass. It would be oppressive. You're going from this outline here to this out here, and it's, again, whether it's storage or ADU, I don't care. I would support or, trying to do a dormer. You've heard ad nauseum, like dormers, but I can't vote for this. It's flush. It's just too bulky, bottom line. I have no other problem with this.
So, well, I guess I'm going to right into that question. I want to hear.
Anyone else?
I'd like to get a fine detail architectural designs and I understand. Jared's point, well made. I guess I would. In my view, significant are, and it may not. Everyone's eye. Might like it. However, in my view, it's not.
Good. Anything further? I have to say, certainly again, with respect to my colleague, Mr. Agman's comments, which I don't disagree with necessarily, but I don't feel that it's substantially more detrimental either. I certainly feel the application warrants serious consideration favorably for me, based on what was presented. But I still sort of feeling that through at the moment, so I'd like to hear colleagues, if anyone has further questions. Yes, Joe.
From looking at this like purely, and it's always tough to look at 2D elevations, and there's not really anything 3D here for us to look at. But that mass is set back quite a bit from 3D, and it's behind the neighboring building, but the neighbor. Well, it's you'll definitely see that, but it's going to be a pretty skewed angle, and you probably won't see the of that extended dormer. So here, it doesn't bother me as much. I feel like that, it is a slightly strange proportion, but anybody that knows the house or knows a specific time of year, the store, and so I can imagine that space is going to be filled with lots of decoration. Not to say that you guys won't be gone at some point and move on, although I'd be surprised at 3 generations in, but and who knows if somebody else uses that in the future, but there's it doesn't bother me that I think the collective neighborhood here.
Very good, Mr. Swanton.
Yeah, I went to the neighborhood a couple days ago. I just went back to it on Google Maps and walked up and down the street. And there are quite a few houses more down the middle and the other end of the building that have second floors. So to me, it's not like it's all, single family ranch houses here. So even though I'm usually very sympathetic to Mr. Hardeman's insights, and I actually, if they proposed it as he did, I'd be more enthused about it. But I can still support what's here. So I'm kind of back for Mr. Hardeman.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Swanton. Any further deliberations? Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I think that given that it's almost 30 feet off the street, the proposed garage, and I think that gives me some comfort that it will be less obtrusive than it would be if it were much closer to the street. So I think for that reason, I'm not that scared. And I think I can support it.
Anyone else who wishes to share anything further? Very good. I'll close deliberations. Do we have a motion and a second, or a motion with conditions and a second.
I'll move that the application for special permit be granted.
I don't think so.
They've signed off.
No requirement.
Good, motion's been made with no conditions by Mr. Beck. Seconded. Thank you, Mr. Delisle. Motion's made by Mr. Bennett, seconded by Mr. Delisle, calling the roll, Mr. Swan.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle. Yeah. Mr. Bennett. Yeah. Mr. Aguirre.
No.
And I vote yes, that is for the affirmative, the ayes have it, and the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And good luck to you, and thank you for your patience this evening.
Thank you.
That concludes our public hearings, leading us to our, we'll close public hearings and go into our business meeting. We have the minutes, from 4/14/2026. I was absent, so I won't have any comments. If they don't have any comments, revisions,
I move we approve them.
thank you, Mr. Swanton. Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No opposed, abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Thank you, Rich. I don't have any other updates than, just thanking you all for your patience this evening. And, with that,
I just wanted to mention
Yes.
that, Andy put on a note earlier today that maybe somebody from this group would like to kind of get some of the folks.
you were. You're following told.
And I would just like to say I'd be happy to do it.
Here, here. Full endorsement of- on
I
back.
didn't want to just be, Jack.
It's
Very smart. I've got to, nobody.
It's not so much that, that Ken stepped, that we all step back. So, do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Right, all those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Not exactly speed zoning, but we got through a lot.
I got